Emperor of the Desert. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 426 Group C Carnival. Destroy, ravage, destroy everything, destroy everything. The woman, wearing a pitch-black skirt and armor, with short hair as dull as bleached blonde, clenched the flag in her hand, stared at the tall and thin man with bulging eyes beside her. "Gil, are you done? You're too slow. Be careful or I'll kill you." "Don't worry, Joan of Arc." Caster, Gil de Rhys smiled. Even though the other party threatened to kill him, he didn't have any anger or other emotions. Now, it's a mess outside, and it will be collected soon. Gil de Rhys, shrouded in a dark and deep robe that looked like something woven from the deep sea, said in a steady tone, and the blood like deep red on the dark cloth swayed with his voice, exuding terror. This woman wearing a pitch-black skirt and armor, with a look full of destructive desire, anger and hatred, was Joan of Arc. Gil de Rhys looked at the holy girl in front of him. Different, indeed different, different from what he remembered. But, it was indeed Joan of Arc. There was nothing wrong with it. He who had believed in the Lord so devoutly would become like this. Why couldn't Joan of Arc, who believed in the Lord even more devoutly but was burned at the stake for heresy, become like this? With the help of the man from hell, he successfully resurrected Joan of Arc, regardless of whether it was true or not. The one in front of him was Joan of Arc. "I'm sorry, Joan of Arc, the time of the banquet has been slightly postponed, but it will definitely be held." Gil de Rhys' bulging eyeballs were covered by his eyelids when he smiled, and the madness and fanaticism in them seemed to disappear. But the next moment, when he opened his eyes, more heart-pounding madness flowed from his cloudy eyes. "Let this city be enveloped in flames. Let them be burned by the fire of hell." That's right. Such a hypocritical belief cannot be conveyed to the Lord in heaven. Such a shallow belief cannot sprout on the Lord's land. The lambs on this earth are not worth saving. Black Jean, created by the cooperation of Qin Ren and Gilbert, showed a hideous smile. "Today is the day of judgment." "But, sir," at this time, the orange-haired and purple-clothed young man, Akutagawa Rinasuke, scratched his head. "Didn't you say before that the Lord does not exist?" After Miss Jean was summoned, the master became very happy. The master became happy, and he was happy for the master. Although he didn't understand his magic or magic, he could still understand emotions. He had seen the master's expression as if he had lost everything important when he was telling about Miss Jean being burned at the stake. It was from that moment that he deeply understood the master's deep and unknown grief. However, it was one thing for the master to be sad, and it was another thing for him to say that God existed. Why did the master start to think that God existed after Miss Jean was summoned? Rinasuke was a little confused. Before Miss Jean was summoned, the master had just said that God did not exist. Does God exist? It should exist, right? Hearing Rinasuke's question, Gil de Rhys could not help but quiet down. He looked seriously at the face of this simple and loyal master who could understand him. Jean, who was standing by, also quieted down and listened to the conversation between the two. "Rinasuke, God does exist. But God only plays with humans. God will not punish any blasphemy." Once, he did what was probably the most vicious and serious blasphemy that could be done in the world. The wailing and crying of thousands of young children did not bring the Lord's punishment. Yes, Joan of Arc, who was filled with evil, smiled ferociously. "No matter whether you are male or female, young or old, pagan or believer, the Lord treats everyone equally. Those who have not been loved by the Lord are ants with no value of existence." The saint who was resurrected by evil power had already distorted her faith and beliefs. Humans who cannot prove the Lord's love should all die. No matter how evil, no matter how cruel, the Lord will forgive us. This is the Lord's will. "Really, Miss Jean?" "It is indeed so." Rinasuke excitedly approached and held Jean's hand tightly, shaking it up and down vigorously as if he had met a fellow traveler. In Kuro Jean's slightly stunned expression, he let go of her hand, turned around, and opened his arms to the sky. "This world is too boring. So I have been exploring non-stop, but the more I explore, the more interesting and strange things I find. As long as you change your angle, you can find that there are foreshadowings everywhere. Rinasuke turned around excitedly and continued to the two. Someone must be writing the script of this world. Someone must be writing this long script with billions of characters, and this person is undoubtedly God. Gilda Race and Jean looked at each other, and then the caster asked with a little surprise, "Rinasuke, do you think the Lord loves humans?" "Of course." Without hesitation, Rinasuke answered, "Anyone who can write the script of this world without stopping for thousands or tens of thousands of years must love humanity very much." No matter it is humanity or something else, they are all loved. Whether it is a hymn of courage and hope, or the blood and weeping shrouded in despair, they are all God's favorite scenes. Be it blasphemy, be it worship, they are all praises to God, aren't they? He stretched out his hand and showed the blood on his hand to the two. "Look, such bright colors. Aren't they the evidence of God's love for mankind? Without love, how can such beautiful colors be created?" Not only Gilda Race, but even Joan of Arc was shocked by Rinasuke's weird belief. "Yes, that's right, Gil." Joan of Arc, who was shrouded in evil power, laughed. "The blasphemy you committed is nothing more than a crude opera performance in the eyes of the Lord." "Yes, Joan of Arc." Gilda looked at Joan of Arc in front of him, with sadness in his eyes, as if it was the last trace of calm before madness. "Then let's use more colorful despair and wailing to dye the Lord's courtyard with more gorgeous colors." He stretched out his hand, and his dry palm like a stick opened the textbook of Luoyan City. In his ears, the words of that adult rang, "Marshalsea, I think you can save this for the most exciting time." This is the curtain call. P.S. This chapter is basically the plot of the original FZ, but it was slightly changed to let Joan of Arc join the carnival of Group C. Chapter 427, The Devil Falls into Hell Forever. Oh. This is so touching for the creator, the protagonist of the oldest legendary epic, the Epic of Gilgamesh that can be discovered, the oldest hero king, and the pharaoh who ruled the land of Egypt and lifted himself to the throne of God. The black ship and the golden ship tore the sky and brought down fire. It was simply a war between gods. The legendary King Arthur and the rebellious knight Mordred fight again. This is great. The death battle between King Arthur and Lancelot. Oh. This figure. Cough. This is not important. The night duel between the Knights of the Red Branch and the Knights of Fianna. But is this monster really the blue-haired guy from before? And the previous one, Alexander and Darius. Oh. Too wonderful. It is great that we can be summoned to this era, and there are such good material. Shakespeare waved his feather pen and wrote on the blank pages of the book. He was in high spirits. He was completely different from other servants. He had no dissatisfaction with being absorbed and devoured by the Qin people, and he was even happy, because, after being devoured, he got the complete script from Qin Ren. To be fair, this script suits his taste very well. However, many parts are handled very roughly, as if they were in a hurry. Many parts that could have been handled better were simply cut. Heartache. As a creator and one of the actors in the script, Shakespeare couldn't help but feel heartache. As for who his good friend is, Shakespeare doesn't know, nor does he care. It doesn't matter whether the Izil who appeared when he formed the troupe and the current Izil are the same person. They are all fake characters. With the keenness of a creator, Shakespeare clearly felt from the connection of various clues that his master's identity was fake. Both identities were fake, but these are not important, because it has nothing to do with the script. He only cares about the script. The next moment, he couldn't help but look up. In addition to the terrifying explosions and collisions that continued to come from the sky on the other side, there was a heart-pounding magical fluctuation from another direction. Oh, wonderful! He looked at the book in his hand, on which was written a passage. Gilda Ray and the false Jeanne d'Arc will be infected by the words of their lord Rinasuke, and the fusion of the false Jeanne d'Arc and the Yan Castle textbook will give birth to the deep-sea witch Jeanne d'Arc. Jeanne d'Arc will become the first nail, nailing hell into the ocean. Part of Fuyuki City will be submerged in the deep sea from another world. The sea demons that are raging under the control of Jean d'Arc will use the entire Fuyuki City as food and give birth to more sea demons. Nito will use the treasure mirror of the underworld as the core and perform a large ceremony underground to infect all corpses and turn them into mummies. The distorted magic will turn these corpses into new demons. Nailing hell into the ground, the frenzied Kuchulain will continuously release bloodthirsty seeds. Creatures corroded by the bloodthirsty seeds will turn into hound-like demons and bloodthirsty demon dogs as the third nail. Lost Zone, the devil is forever in hell. Wonderful, but poorly named. Shakespeare only gave this comment. Whether it was the struggle between the Sun King and the Hero King, the confrontation between the two King Arthurs and the Knights of the Round Table, or the heroes from Celtic mythology, everything was just an episode. The ultimate goal is to turn all the creatures in the world into demons. Turn the whole world into a world of demons. Turn the whole world into a real hell, and all humans and all creatures will become demons. Even Shakespeare did not expect that the final result of the play he participated in would be like this. In the distant southern hemisphere, Australia. Dear Da Vinci, is this really a lost belt? It feels no different from the normal world. An orange-haired girl looked around with a puzzled figure. On the road, ordinary people were walking on ordinary streets. There was no ice here, and there was nothing strange. Compared with the Earth before it turned into a weird white world, there was no abnormality. However, the girl next to her smiled like an angel in response to her words. Ritsuka should call me Da Vinci-chan. Yes, yes. Da Vinci-chan. The orange-haired girl curled her lips and glanced at the pink and purple-haired girl next to her. Mashu, have you noticed anything? No, senior. The purple-haired girl glanced around, and her eyes finally fell on a handsome young man in a suit at the very edge of the group. As if noticing her gaze, the handsome young man in a suit turned around. Miss Ritsuka, the magic power in the air is getting stronger. Ah, the girl named Ritsuka nodded. I know. Isn't it normal for the magic power in the Lost Belt to be strong? Yes. The girl named Mashu also nodded, and the glasses hanging on her nose swayed with her movement. Mr. Holmes, is there anything abnormal about this magic power? It seems that I need to explain what the Lost Belt is again. The young man called Holmes raised the pipe in his hand and said in a serious tone, to be brief, normal history is called panhuman history, and the several Lost Belts we have experienced before, the world where Ivan the Terrible cooperated with the magician to establish the Beast Empire in the frozen land, the Ice Flame world where Scotty is where Ragnarok continues, and the world where the first Emperor of Qin did not die and unified the human world. These Lost Belts are all fixed phenomena formed due to incorrect developments. Some abnormal situation occurred in a certain era, causing the development of the entire world to deviate from panhuman history. It's like the trunk and branches of a tree. And according to the intelligence we got before, the ultimate goal of the formation of these Lost Belts is to make history return to the Age of Gods. One of the characteristics of returning to the Age of Gods is that various mysteries that have gradually disappeared reappear. In normal panhuman history, magic power continues to dilute over time. The concentration of magic power in the modern era is very different from that in the Age of Gods. Do you still remember the situations in the several Lost Belts we visited before? Listening to Holmes' words, Mashu and Fujimaru Ritsuka both nodded. They remembered all of this. To put it simply, in several Lost Belts, magic power has become very strong, but, here, magic power has just begun to grow stronger. Just begun? Yes. Although it's a little different, it has a demonic flavor. P.S. This Lost Belt has countless demon hearts that can be plucked. Laughs. PS2. It's really hard to come up with a name. I came up with several, such as Demon God's Eternal Fall to Hell, Demon God's Eternal Fall to Paradise, etc., but I finally decided to use this one. Chapter 428, Lost Belt and Fantasy Tree. Demon, Fujimaru Ritsuka showed a puzzled expression. Yes, Holmes said, but I don't know the specific situation yet. I need to confirm the specific situation with Miss Leonardo. He turned his eyes to the girl next to him who called herself Da Vinci-chan. No problem. The almighty Da Vinci has prepared everything. The girl nodded and showed a cute expression. The first thing is to confirm the status of the heroic spirit in this lost belt. Their main combat power is to summon heroic spirits and servants. They have also seen the simplified and degraded version of the servant summoning of the decisive battle magic heroic spirit summoning in some singularities before. Heroic spirits are being separated from the timeline. They will be summoned to all times, whether in the past or the future. However, only the world can summon the real body of the heroic spirit. Unfortunately, humans cannot summon the real body of the heroic spirit and can only summon the servants as clones. The servant summoning system of their organization, Chaldea, also comes from decisive battle magic heroic spirit summoning, but the structure of Chaldea's summoning system is somewhat different. Even if they are not heroic spirits, they can still construct special spiritual bases through special methods and summon them as servant. However, after Chaldea was destroyed, they only had a backup system left, a system that recorded the shadows of the spiritual bases of the servants who had been summoned to Chaldea. Through this, they can summon the shadow of the servant with some of the power of those servants. However, as a degraded version of the servant, the shadow of the servant is even less powerful. The Lost Belt is a special branch of pan-human history that has gone to extremes due to a certain disagreement, and various environments are generally extreme. The energy of the entire universe is limited. Pan-human history is the main trunk of history, and its development can be evaluated as balance. There are countless possibilities. This is the trunk, which is called compilation matters. However, because of its extreme development, the Lost Belt has lost many possibilities, just like a deformed and swollen branch. If this branch continues to grow, pan-human history will lack nutrition. Under normal circumstances, the universe will automatically cut off this abnormal development, over-specialization and loss of multiple possibilities. This is the pruning phenomenon. However, the law of the universe would naturally reduce the energy given to such a branch, allowing it to perish on its own. However, these fragments that should be cut off may be established with the intervention of abnormal matter. This abnormal matter is the illusion tree. To sum up simply, pan-human history is a compilation matter, and the Lost Belt is a matter of pruning interfered with by the illusion tree. Based on previous experience, the heroic spirits living in extreme environments and living in Lost Belts that are more cruel than pan-human history are much stronger than the heroic spirits in pan-human history. Moreover, due to the different historical developments, the various characters in the Lost Belts are quite different from those in pan-human history. Because of the differences in the Lost Belts, even many servants cannot be summoned at all. The shadow of the servant is sufficient as a general combat force, but in the end, the real servants must be summoned from the throne of heroes. Therefore, the first priority is to confirm the extent to which this Lost Belt can communicate with the throne of heroes. The worst case is that the throne of heroes cannot communicate at all. Holmes thought, judging from the concentration of magic power, it seems that the fantasy tree has just grown. While thinking, Holmes' eyes swept to the orange-haired girl. Ms. Ritsuka, get ready. If you can communicate with the throne of heroes, you will need to summon a servant like last time. No problem. The orange-haired girl nodded seriously. Middle East. The boundless desert traced sand, but no matter how high the sand flew, it could not touch the white pillar extending from the void. It takes a lot of effort to make this thing. Qin Ren stared at the pillar and smiled. I wonder if Gudiko and the others think that this fantasy tree needs 90 days to grow. On the pillar that penetrated the void, a dark trace appeared faintly, and a huge white fragment fell from the fantasy tree, revealing its true appearance, dark and evil. The white color of this giant pillar seems to be just a color used to cover something. Seeing this scene, Qin Ren curled his lips. It's not good to have the paint peeling off. The moment his voice fell, the white trace stopped in the air, and then flew to the imagination tree again, covering up the exposed black. However, although this part was covered, the evil black color entangled at the end of the white giant pillar was still conspicuous. It doesn't matter, It's almost over anyway, but let's cover it up for the time being. As he said, Qin Ren raised his hand, and with the sound of a chain, a black shadow flashed across the desert. Then, rumble, it seemed that the entire desert was lifted up, and countless gravel flew into the sky, covering up the giant pillar floating in the sky. And when the wind and sand surged, under the imagination tree, a group of evil humanoid creatures with black membrane wings and strange shapes were roaring and killing each other. It's not yet fully completed. We can only transform humans into low-level demons and badges. Qin Ren couldn't help but shook his head. These two restraining forces are really stubborn. Although all the anchor points have been established over the past few hundred years to weaken their resistance, the resistance still continues. If it could be promoted to A level earlier, it would be completed 100 years earlier, and it would be completed immediately when the last anchor point is determined. However, it doesn't matter. It's not too late to be promoted to A level now. His sight passed through the sky and flew to the southern hemisphere. Gudiko, Gudiko, I am also Gudiko. We are colleagues from the same corner. It would be great to get along with each other. Add me as a friend. When there is an event, I will hang my abbey with a full baby stone on it for you to use. Qin Ren said a few words to himself, and a puzzled look appeared on his face. After the whole world is demonized and turned into hell, the summoned servants should all become demons, right? I still have to thank Mr. Gay. No one cares about incineration on this timeline, and the demon pillar has not been activated. It's a good deal for me. After the last thank you speech, Qin Ren's body collapsed, and this incarnation of will turned into the original body in the surge of dark power, a huge black eye floating in the sky. With the sound of chains ringing, Qin Ren began to be promoted. Do you want to consume 100 million yellow sand gold coins and 10 B-level certificates? Yes. Chapter 429 Hatching, almost completely liberated. As the yellow sand gold coins disappeared like a tide along with the 10 B-level certificates, a new force surged in Qin Ren's body. At the beginning, he had the yellow sand bloodline that symbolized Set, the pillar of sandstorms. The first upgrade gave him the scorching punishment of Ra, the pillar of the sun. The second upgrade gave him the power of the desert that combined the ability of Shu, the pillar of wind, with the ability to control sand. The third upgrade gave him the disorderly rain that symbolized Tefnut, the pillar of rain. The fourth upgrade gave him the boundless land that represented Jeb, the pillar of earth. The fifth, which was the last time, he got the judgment of life and death. Life, undoubtedly, was Isis, the goddess of life. Death, was it Osiris, the god of the underworld, or Nephthys, the patron saint of the dead, or both? After the fifth upgrade, he absorbed and merged all the skills into one. This bloodline that had an unclear relationship with the Egyptian gods was integrated into his body. And now, he felt that the power flowing in this incarnation of will was the power of death. To be precise, it was the power to protect the dead. It symbolized the power of Nephthys, the patron saint of the dead. However, just like before, every time this incarnation of will became stronger, the seal of the body in the yellow sand world was partially unlocked again. Before, he had guessed. He compared the yellow sand world to an eggshell, which was both a protection and a seal, and the body in the yellow sand world was an unhatched chick. However, when upgrading his bloodline to level B, he was shocked to discover another thing. He didn't know why his inexplicable bloodline was related to the Egyptian gods. But now, he has clearly caught the signs and the clues. His existence is vaguely involved in two things. The first is his own body. His own body is undoubtedly an extremely powerful existence. The yellow sand world, that huge star with a huge span and no actual and intuitive comparison object. He himself could not determine how much larger than the solar system and how much smaller than the Milky Way was his body. To be precise, it was the current body of his original body. The yellow sand world was not the original body of his original body. This sentence is a bit difficult to say, but to put it simply, his original body is also a dead person. His original body seems to have died, and then a powerful existence used the yellow sand world as a sustenance, stuffed his original body into the yellow sand world, and merged with the yellow sand world. The process of his will incarnation gradually becoming stronger is actually the process of his original body and the yellow sand world merging. The reason why he was able to perceive this matter was because his will incarnation grew too fast, making the original smooth fusion process of his original body and the yellow sand world too fast, so there was a flaw. It was because of this that Qin Ren was able to feel this matter. This is the first thing, the relationship between his original body and the yellow sand world and the incarnation of his will. And the second is the Egyptian gods. The power he obtained, which symbolizes the Egyptian gods, is just a way. The power of his original body was extracted, and in the manner of the Egyptian 9 pillars, it was split into 9 different forms of sand, sun, and wind, and 9 pillars were erected in the yellow sand world. At the same time, the power of these 9 pillars would be instilled into his will incarnation. However, there was a problem: the pillar of the demon god. This pillar did not exist in the Egyptian 9 pillars. Qin Ren previously associated this pillar with Apep, the twin brother of the sun god Ra. However, by now, he had completely understood. This pillar of the demon god, this evil quality, was originally possessed by his original body. The one who merged his dead body with the yellow sand world to create the egg actually wanted to guide his original body to hatch in the form of 9 pillars. However, because he grew too fast, there was a problem with the fusion of his original body and the yellow sand world, and his original quality, evil, leaked out and formed the pillar of the demon god. There was an error in the hatching process, and it was an error at the beginning. However, Qin Ren was not sure, because he didn't know whether the evil leaked from his original body, this pillar of the demon god, was intentional by the other party, deliberately letting his body leak out some of its power to hatch into the pillar of demon god. Could this be the other party's purpose? For this reason, he had made a bold attempt before, to fuse all his skills with the new blood representing the Egyptian gods, and turn himself into the eternal imprisoned demon god. He did this, but until now, he did not feel any danger. If there is an existence that deliberately planned such a thing, and let him hatch in a similar way to the Egyptian 9 pillars, then he would fuse the blood and use it as the nourishment of the eternal imprisoned demon god, which would destroy this plan. Then the mastermind behind the scenes would definitely do something to him because the plan was destroyed, right? However, until now, he has not felt any danger. In other words, is his current action in line with the other party's plan? Of course, this is all about thinking about the other party from the perspective of enemy. If the mastermind behind the scenes is a friendly army, and even this series of operations are planned by himself, Qin Ren's body, very troublesome. The problem is very troublesome. The problem exposed now is quite troublesome. If he wants to figure out all the problems, what he needs to do is to let his will incarnation continue to upgrade to S. Let the main body hatch quickly from the yellow sand world. As his main body hatches, he can also perceive more details. If it is fully hatched, maybe he can see the whole picture of the matter, or even get the original memory. Now, Qin Ren is still unclear, but he must do this. We'll develop this timeline into a strange belt, turn everyone into a demon, and turn the entire earth into a paradise for demons. This is what Qin Ren must do to achieve this goal. When the strange belt is fully grown, he can also start to harvest. As for this, bloodline skills, immortal tomb, expand an immortal area. In the area, all attributes of the dead are increased. After being killed, the designated target can be resurrected infinitely until the power is exhausted. Qin Ren glanced at it, feeling the newly hatched power of Nephthys, the guardian of the dead, and then, without hesitation, stretched out the chain-like tentacles to absorb and fuse the skills. The dark and evil power surged, swallowing the skills and merging with other skills. A brand new skill emerged. Oh wow! Feeling the power of this skill, Qin Ren smiled. Endless PvE. I guess the servants in the corners will like it. Devil's Paradise. Release power and unfold a demon domain. Within the domain, all demons and evil attributed individuals have all their attributes increased. After the designated target is killed, it can be resurrected unlimited times until the power is exhausted. Chapter 430 Chaldea Servant. Shadow Border. A virtual submarine that looks like a submarine and a tank. Sherlock Holmes and the backup doll with Da Vinci's memory. the young girl Da Vinci, are working with other Chaldea employees to confirm the status of this world through the existing technology and magic, and the result, the clock tower is still there, the clock tower is still there, the gold music family is still there, the 1,000-world tree is still there, a fat blonde man shouted excitedly. In the world where the earth has been bleached, Chaldea exists. The places where human civilization can be seen have basically disappeared. The clock tower where he came from, or to be more precise, the alchemist gold music of the clock tower, as a branch family of the Yugdomernia family that once tried to leave the clock tower but failed, also disappeared. The largest magic fortress protected by hundreds of defense agencies, a powerful organization that can still exist even if the earth is destroyed, disappeared. This is such a powerful and incredible fact. However, in this place, both the main family, Yugdomernia, and the gold music family are still there. How can this not make him excited? At the beginning, he used his family property to buy the entire Chaldea and became the director of Chaldea, just to split Chaldea into 7 parts and sell them to make a fortune. But who would have thought that he would be forced to go to each abnormal zone to solve various problems? Now, how can he not be excited to hear that his family is still there again? Mr. Director, you'd better be mentally prepared. Holmes's eyes did not turn to the excited new director Goldreuf at all, but looked at the several huge red dots displayed on the screen, frowning. Miss Leonardo, these are all the dots, right? That's right. The girl Da Vinci nodded. Europe, Asia, Africa, America, and the center of Oceania. There are things living in the earth veins, and there is a certain existence that uses the earth veins as nutrients and is cultivating something, through magic means. They discovered this unconcealed, extremely powerful magic fluctuation. When Goldreuf turned his gaze towards him, Holmes continued, do you think that organizations like the Clock Tower, Atlas Institute, and the Wandering Sea would allow this to happen? Someone was unabashedly extracting the power from the earth veins to cultivate something. Adhering to the concept of concealment of magic, none of the 3 organizations would allow this to happen. But, in fact, it happened. They could find such an obvious situation from far away here, so how could the Clock Tower not find it? Of course not. So what made the 3 major magic organizations allow this situation to happen? Holmes turned his scrutinizing gaze towards Goldreuf and said nothing. And Da Vinci also turned his gaze towards him and said what Holmes did not say. Goldreuf, maybe the main instigator of the current situation is the Clock Tower, Atlas Institute, and the Wandering Sea. How? How is this possible? How could Cryptor and those people have this ability? Goldreuf's face turned pale, and he seemed to be frightened by this terrible fact. Cryptors, hidden ones, are also originally masters of Chaldea. Based on past experience, every lost belt seems to be related to them. Although it is hard to accept, there should be a Cryptor in this lost belt. Moreover, maybe it is really as the crappy detective said, the Clock Tower, Atlas Court and the Wandering Sea will all become their enemies. Even though they have relied on summoned servants to fight against the gods before, as a modern magician, they can feel the power of the 3 major magic organizations more directly than the gods. Apart from other things, in terms of the magic quality of the masters, the magicians in the 3 major magic organizations are stronger. But it is impossible for the Clock Tower, Atlas and the Wandering Sea to stand on the same front to fight us, right? Goldreuf said with a livid face. Hearing this, the girl Da Vinci couldn't help but sigh. Goldreuf, have you forgotten that we are the enemies of the Lost Belt? Hearing this, Goldreuf slapped his face. I almost forgot. The Lost Belt, as a cutting phenomenon, as a special branch abandoned by the universe and destined to die, was preserved because of the existence of the illusion tree. In the eyes of the Chaldean members from the pan-human history, the illusion tree is an enemy, but for the creatures in the Lost Belt, the illusion tree is the existence that saved the world. They are completely hostile. Even if the 3 major magic organizations in this Lost Belt are more reasonable, they will never accept their removal of the illusion tree. Like the first Emperor of Qin, who was able to let go and accept the extinction of the Lost Belt where he lived, he would not think it would happen again. Then let's hide our identities. Goldreuf was still a little unwilling to give up. After all, he finally came to a world that was not much different from the original world, and he still had some expectations. At this moment, everyone suddenly discovered that the several red dots on the screen continued to expand. Especially in a point in Asia, there was only one red dot originally, but suddenly several red dots appeared. Miss Leonardo, let's rush here immediately. Holmes looked at the several red dots that were expanding, and his tone was serious. In the current situation, they still couldn't find the specific location of the fantasy tree, so there was only one way, to go to the place with the worst situation. Now, although it is unknown what is being cultivated in these red dots, it is the worst to let this situation continue in view of the situation that affects the entire Earth. I know, the servant Da Vinci has returned to the throne of heroes, and the backup doll with her memory, the girl Da Vinci, is also embedded in the control core of the imaginary submersible device Shadow Border. The phantom of the girl Da Vinci flashed and disappeared in front of the screen, and went to prepare. After the girl Da Vinci disappeared, Holmes immediately prepared to leave the submersible device to call back Fujimaru, Ritsuka and Mashu, who were outside the car. At this time, he saw the door suddenly open, and the person he was going to call came back, but there was a person following behind them. This aura, is it a servant? Holmes looked at the other party. It was a long-haired man dressed very brightly and flamboyantly, like a circus clown, with an evil aura surrounding him. He had never met the other party face to face, but he could recall the information he had seen. You are, I am, roar he, you. Chapter 431. Mephisto. Looking at Mephisto's weird behavior, Fujimaru Ritsuka couldn't help but cover his face. Mephisto, speak to the point, speak to the point, say it again what you just said to me. As she said that, she muttered, I still don't understand why I summoned you here. Hearing her words, Mephisto raised his hands exaggeratedly, like an actor in a grotesque opera, and moved closer to Fujimaru Ritsuka with exaggerated movements, with his long tongue sticking out from between his blue-green lips, like a clown. Because I smell the smell of paradise. Ha 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 ha. I told you to speak to the point. Fujimaru Ritsuka seemed to be very familiar with his behavior habits, and picked up the metal parts next to him and was about to slap his tongue that was about to hit his face. No, this won't do. The next moment, the tongue was retracted, accompanied by a voice that was probably a protest against Fujimaru Ritsuka's behavior. Mephisto's figure disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he moved to Holmes' side, put his hands on his shoulders, and said, because, this is hell, this is the devil's paradise. Although his behavior was extremely strange, everyone understood what he said. Hell? Da Vinci appeared in the form of a girl. Is this lost belt related to the devil? I don't know, I don't know, I don't know tilde. I just smelled a pleasant smell. With his mouth curled up again, Mephisto disappeared again, and then appeared behind Da Vinci. Yo, Da Vinci, you have become like me. Very good, very good, very good, haha. The young girl Da Vinci naturally understood what he meant. The Mephisto in front of her was a puppet made by the magician Faust. Although he had the elements of a devil because of the legend of being a devil, he was actually still a man-made man, a Hamakurazu, just like her current spare body that was activated because of the death of the servant, a magic puppet. In short, it was a demonized man-made man. Almighty Da Vinci can do anything. Amid Mephisto's perverted laughter, with an angelic smile on her face, the young girl Da Vinci blinked and said to Fujimaru Ritsuka, the magic power that Holmes and I have detected is gradually getting stronger and has an evil feeling. Combined with what Mephisto said, this lost belt is related to the devil, which means that it is very likely that the whole world is transforming into hell. At this moment, everyone suddenly saw Mephisto raise his head, as if looking at the sky, and then suddenly let out a weird laugh. Ha ha ha, yai. Then, he turned his head and looked at Fujimaru Ritsuka. Master yo, if you want to find help, hurry up, the castle door is about to disappear. Ha ha ha. Mephisto said this meaningless sentence in an unbearable, fast and slow tone. The castle door? At this time, Fujimaru Ritsuka and Mashu, who had dealt with Mephisto a lot, were stunned. Da Vinci was also stunned for a moment, and then seemed to have thought of something, with a look of realization on her face. Before she could speak, Holmes' voice rang out. What he meant was that if we don't summon the servant again, We won't be able to summon one anymore. Holmes, who met Mephisto for the first time, looked at this servant whose communication difficulty was comparable to that of a berserker, and turned to look at Fujimaru Ritsuka. Ms. Ritsuka, we don't have time to prepare any relics or other items. We can only rely on your compatibility with the servant to summon. Normally, if there are no relics to summon a servant with a high compatibility with the summoner will appear. Compatibility can be manifested in many aspects, such as personality, characteristics, abilities, and even compatibility in life experiences. The young girl Da Vinci explained on the side. Hearing this, Fujimaru Ritsuka couldn't help but purse her lips, glanced at Mephisto, and complained in her heart, "Do Mephisto and I have a high compatibility?" Although she only said it in her heart, Mephisto seemed to have heard her voice. When she finished complaining, he said as if to take over, "You have won the lottery to be able to summon me, master." Ha ha ha. Halfway through laughing, the voice suddenly stopped. "Just kidding. Being summoned by you, master, is my failure." The original clown-like posture disappeared in an instant, and turned into a calm face like a gentleman. However, this appearance only lasted for a moment, and disappeared from the spot as he turned into a spirit. Watching Mephisto disappear, Fujimaru Ritsuka raised an eyebrow and said nothing. At this time, the new director Goldrayev, who was standing by to watch the clown-like demon Mephisto disappear, dared to speak. "I say, now that we know the situation, we should quickly find a place with abundant magic power to summon servants, and then rush to that island country." "No problem, don't worry." The girl Da Vinci smiled. Now the magic power of the whole world is getting stronger at a very fast speed. There is no need to go out of your way to find spiritual veins. Mashu. Ah? Yes, Mashu was stunned for a moment after hearing the words, and then she reacted and quickly activated her spiritual clothing ornus and took out her giant shield. Fuiuki City. The impact that spread across the sky dissipated again, and dozens of narrow golden tracks emerged from the ripples of light behind Gilgamesh, and shot out with the exact same trajectory as the dozens of black beams that shot towards him. Boom, boom, boom. Some of the gorgeous weapons that flew out of the gate of Babylon were shot down, some were directly destroyed in the web of black beams, and some cut through the beams and crashed into the dark solar boat. Similarly, several black lights also hit the Vimana, the boat of light under Gilgamesh. This made the sky boat made of gold and gems sway. At this moment, Gilgamesh, who had originally had an interesting expression, suddenly became ugly. Tokiomi, this idiot. Looking at the black light that continued to shoot out from the dark solar boat, Gilgamesh waved his hand again, but instead of releasing the rain of treasures to resist, he drove the Vimana, the boat of light, to climb upwards. The green wings on the Vimana, which looked like dragonfly wings, suddenly flashed, leaving two green tails, and moved diagonally upwards, avoiding the bombardment of black light. "It seems that you have encountered an unexpected situation, Golden King." Standing on the dark bow of the dark sun boat that was constantly absorbing the glow and heat and spreading the chill, the brown-haired man, Ramses II, raised the pharaoh's scepter in his hand. "But, unfortunately, I will not stop. I can't stop, and I won't stop." P.S. Off topic. The CV of Ramses II and Mephisto is the same person. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 432. Always be elegant. Not long ago, at the Tozaka residence, Tozaka Tokiomi was standing with his disciple Kotamin Kairai, and the assassin, a dozen of Husan of the 100 Faces, were gathering in front of the two. The servant, who was undoubtedly also an assassin and might have a relationship with Husan, for some reason, was swallowed up by the sudden black vortex. This strange situation made Tozaka Tokiomi extremely alert. He didn't know if it was the other party's noble phantasm. He immediately left the basement with Kairai under the protection of Husan of the 100 Faces. After asking Kairai to call back Husan of the 100 Faces, he activated all the defensive magic. However, just like when Hassan of the Hundred Faces easily broke through the magic workshop and entered the Tozaka residence. Tokiomi knew very well that Hassan could easily break through the defense line. "Do you want to summon Archer back?" Kotamin Kairai, who was staying beside Tokiomi, said expressionlessly. His right hand was already holding a weapon with only the hilt. It was from the Holy Church, an item equivalent to the magician's magic gift, the Black Key. This exorcist weapon used to purify evil spirits and evil creatures is in his hand. The small source of magic transformed from the vitality in his body is ready to flow into the hilt of the Black Key sword at any time, and condense the blade with magic. It is impossible to cause any effective damage to the servants by physical means and firearms. Judging from the current situation, as a master, he also needs to participate in the battlefield between servants. The assassin should have retreated. Tasaka Tokiomi shook his head. "I can't call Archer back yet. In the previous battle at the port, I used the command seal to call Archer back to avoid exposing the noble phantasm. Archer is already very dissatisfied with me. I can't use the command seal again until the last moment." Although the current situation is very abnormal, Tasaka Tokiomi still decided to keep at least one command seal. The command seal is a magic crystal given to the master by the Greater Holy Grail. It contains powerful magic and absolute command over the contracted servants. But it can only be used 3 times at most. The powerful magic contained in the Holy Grail can be used as a wish-granting machine. However, if one wants to achieve the long-cherished wish of the magicians, to reach the root, not only must victory be achieved, but also the 7 servants summoned by the Holy Grail must all die, collect their souls into the small Holy Grail, and return these souls together to the throne of heroes, so as to open the hole leading to the outside and connect to the root. As a traditional magician, Tasaka Tokiomi also wants to reach the root. To do this, he must keep one command seal until the end and let Archer commit suicide. Although this premises that he can win, it is difficult to complete the Holy Grail war under the current abnormal situation, but this is also the only way he can restrain Archer. Using up the command seals will not terminate the contract between the master and the servant, but it will not be possible to force the servant to execute the order. However, since it is quite dangerous to be unable to control a powerful servant, and there is even the possibility of being killed by the servant's rebellion, the actual number of times it can be used is generally 2 times. If it is not necessary, Tasaka Tokiomi wants to keep the remaining 2 command seals. After all, he only has 2 command seals left now, and 1 stroke must be kept, that is, only 1 stroke is left. Therefore, this stroke must be used with caution. It should not be used lightly until the most dangerous moment. A serious look appeared on that elegant face. Tozaka Tokiomi clenched the ruby scepter in his hand and said, "Kairai, if that servant appears again, your assassin will have to deal with it." "I understand." Kotamin Kairai nodded expressionlessly, and then turned his eyes to the surroundings. Except for the few personalities who were scouting for intelligence at the battle scene of several pairs of servants, the other 100 faces had returned to the Tozaka residence. However, compared to this, the situation seemed a little strange. Kotamin Kairai's eyes swept over the surrounding Husans. They seemed to be concentrating and sensing something. Sure enough, the moment Kotamin Kairai realized this, the 100 faces Husan, who looked like a woman with a ponytail, suddenly said Kairai-sama, we have a bad feeling. After hearing this, both Kotamin Kairai and Tozaka Tokiomi's faces instantly tensed. Assassin's words were probably because he had a premonition of the existence of the servant just now. The two looked at each other, unconsciously slowing their breathing, and becoming more cautious than before. Assassin, send a few people to search the entire mansion, without asking his master, Toshiomi Tozaka, for his opinion. Kotamin Kairai instructed Husan of the 100 faces. Yes. After a brief response, the 4 Husan of the 100 faces left the hall and went to search other parts of the mansion. The remaining Husan of the 100 faces looked around, their eyes passing over the dim lawn outside the hall where the moonlight was shining, and the cold air blew over the lawn. Kairai-sama, be careful. As if noticing something, one of the Husan suddenly shouted. Toshiomi Tozaka and the other 2 responded immediately to this sentence. Baden, German. Along with the actions of the first engineer, a chant fell, and the universal etiquette for dealing with curses and various negative magics was immediately activated. The ruby scepter in Toshiomi's hand lit up red, like a shield, pushing away the fog that appeared around him at some point. Although his vision was still clear, how could Tasaka Tokiomi not notice such an abnormality under this protective ritual? This fog, just as Tasaka Tokiomi was about to say something, he suddenly felt a dissolving pain deep in his nasal cavity. He coughed reflexively and quickly covered his mouth. Kairai, it's poison. After giving the reminder, Tasaka Tokiomi was about to activate the healing magic ritual again, but at this moment, he found that the flame-like shield surrounding him was corroding at a very fast speed. On the ruby scepter in his hand, the ruby that served as an energy supply and stored a large amount of his magic power was quickly covered with cracks. It's a treasure. It's the treasure of the servant. It's that servant. A series of magic terms such as thought, ritual and curse passed by and finally stopped at treasure. Kotamin Kairai, who also used the same exorcism method from the Holy Church as Tasaka Tokiomi to isolate the poisonous fog, immediately raised his right hand at this time, and the lines of the command seal that were only 2 strokes left lit up. Command the command seal. Assassin, kill the invading servant at all costs. When the will of the servant is contrary to that of the master, the command seal can forcibly control the servant. But when the will of the servant is the same as that of the master, the command seal will not become a chain, but will play the role of arming and strengthening the servant. In an instant, an undetectable glimmer flashed across the bodies of all the 100 faces present at the same time, and the abundant magic power gathered in their bodies. The next moment, all the 100 faces Husan rushed out, ran to the French window, and ran to the courtyard. The lawn and the courtyard had all died at some point, and this poisonous fog also spread from the courtyard. Chapter 433, Undoubted Victory. Watching Husan rush out of the hall and into the courtyard, Kotamin Kairai held his breath and spread his hands at the same time, and the black keys in his hands were thrown away. Instead, the cross he took out glowed. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. He chanted the baptism with the content of the gospel, and the magic power generated in his body was transformed into a healing effect. But even so, Kotamin Kairai's face showed a painful expression. In the pain, Kotamin Kairai still made a calm judgment, took off his coat, and covered his mouth and nose tightly with the cloth that had been blessed by the secret and had reached the level of low-level magic ceremonial close to a certain extent. He breathed through the coat, and the pain was also alleviated to some extent. There is no doubt that this poisonous fog is a curse. The Holy Church does not use magic, but uses something called secrets, which is similar to magic or even the same as another name for technology. Although the baptismal chant was used in time to curb the continued invasion of the toxin, it was simply unable to resist in front of the servant's treasure. That simple healing barrier was instantly torn apart by the corrosive poisonous fog. Not to mention taking a breath. Even if he just opened his mouth to recite the spell without inhaling air, he would feel an explosive pain deep in his mouth and oral cavity, making his vision blurry. Kairai, hey, cheer up, Kairai. With the magic ritual barrier that could still hold out for a while, Tasaka Tokiomi paid some attention to his apprentice Kotamin Kairai. Seeing the other party reluctantly opening his eyes, Tasaka Tokiomi said in a deep voice, Kairai, anyway, let's escape from this fog first. While speaking, he waved his left hand and performed a magic trick. The magic power surged and strengthened his body. In an instant, his body was strengthened to be comparable to the strongest athlete among ordinary people. I understand. Without the slightest hesitation, Kotamin Kairai also used the strengthening. However, Kairai, who maintained the magic power injected into the cross, did not have the energy to chant a second time, so he chose the command seal. This crystal, which contains powerful magic power, is the most cost-effective to use on the servants. However, it can also be used as an energy block that stores magic power, just like the gems of the Tozaka family, and it can be consumed when needed. The last stroke of the command seal disappeared from Kotamin Kairai's hand, and Kotamin Kairai's body was suddenly filled with powerful magic power and strengthened to a terrifying degree. Just the skin of the body can resist bullets. What was strengthened was not only the hardness of the flesh, but also the explosive power of the body. Holding the cross in his right hand, Kotamin Kairai immediately chose the nearest route in his memory that could lead to the outside world without passing through the courtyard and ran. Before the magic power of the command seal was exhausted, Kotamin Kairai, who had obtained a powerful anti-magic ability, was able to resist the damage caused by the poisonous fog, and his vision was freed from the erosion of the poisonous fog and became clear again. Tozaka Tokiomi and Kotamin Kairai quickly fled from the Tozaka mansion and the workshop that could be called a fortress, without any nostalgia. The two people who knew the power of the servants would never think of continuing to use the workshop as a position to resist the servants. If it was anything else, it would be fine. In the face of this poisonous fog, staying in the workshop is just waiting for death. Outside the Tozaka residence, in the courtyard, really, I still have to struggle, it's just a waste of energy. A woman with a skull mask and purple short hair whispered. With her as the center of the circle, all the creatures in the courtyard died. Whether it was long grass, insects, bacteria or smaller microorganisms, they all died and melted in the poisonous fog. Hassan of Tranquility, in addition to accurately poisoning the target, can also dilute and release it in the form of poisonous fog. Such poisonous fog is difficult to resist even for powerful magicians. The best way is to escape. The response of the two people was correct. However, the response of the last heir of the name of Hassan after him was extremely stupid. You really don't deserve to be Hassan. Mirror Silence looked at the hundreds of faces who gathered from all directions as if charging, holding daggers and short knives, and whispered. After slightly turning her body to avoid the 13 daggers and short knives flying from the back, left and right, the mirrored quiet body continued to dance in the courtyard like a dance, releasing charm. One of her abilities is the silent dance. She can use a dance composed of charming movements in a way close to engineering magic to charm those who observe her. At the same time, it is also the way for her to release her treasure, the delusion poison body, in the form of poison mist. Although the level of charm is not strong, it is lower than the intensity of the diluted poison mist, and ordinary magicians can resist it. However, with the quiet dance, many personalities in Hassan of 100 Faces have slightly delayed their movements. However, there are also many personalities that are not charmed. Hassan of 100 Faces, who sublimated the legend of multiple personalities into a treasure. Each personality is relatively independent and has different personalities. Most female personalities will not be charmed by quietness, and after the male personality, there are also some who are not close to women or even have no feelings for women at all. Among the 40 or so personalities that rushed towards Jingmai, nearly 20 of them were not affected by the charm effect and quickly rushed to Jingmai's front. But, too weak. Even though they were strengthened by Kotamin Kairai's command seal, the characteristic of the illusion that a person's power would be reduced when a personality was separated made the 100 Faces look extremely weak in front of Jingmai, as if chopping melons and vegetables. The mirror image Jingmai flexibly dodged the attacks one after another with her body pressed against her body, as if it was a dangerous move. The dagger in her hand cut the throats of several 100 Faces Hassan and pierced into their heart like spiritual cores. However, more than a dozen people fell. Unlike the diluted poisonous fog, the poison endured by the creatures she touched was 100 times more than that after dilution. The bodies of the 100 Faces Hassan that she dodged closely with dangerous moves were corroded at an extremely fast speed, as if they were bubbles touched by high temperatures, and most of their bodies were corroded in an instant. Those who were mesmerized by her enchanting dance, even if it was only for a moment, had already begun to corrode their bodies. Her quiet dance steps were not only enchanting, but also had the effect of weakening the opponent's resistance both physically and mentally. Just a moment later, their bodies were penetrated by the poison, corroding more than 1/5. After killing the nearest few Hassans, the mirror image of quietness moved behind them with smooth and charming quiet dance steps, either touching their bodies like a lover, or gently pushing the dagger into their hearts. When the quiet dance steps stopped, The last Husan who surrounded them fell to the ground. "Unfortunately, you met me." Quiet looked at the Husans who fell to the ground with an indifferent look. Her poison mist was easy to use when dealing with enemies who were not strong individually and only had numbers. Then, she raised her toes and stepped on the dead body of the 100 Faces personality. With each step, a black singularity appeared, then expanded, pulling the body of the 100 Faces into it. A victory without suspense. Chapter 434, Tokiomi. It's all your fault. The assassin has been killed. Kotamin Kairai, who had just escaped from the Tozaka family residence from the other side, felt that his contract with the 100 Faces was broken, and immediately told Tozaka Tokiomi beside him about this. With a fluent and clear voice, his eyes swept across the broken gems on the ruby staff, and Tozaka Tokiomi immediately said, "Continue to move away." However, at this moment, a white skull mask suddenly appeared in front of the two. After Kotamin Kairai subconsciously made the judgment that it was his servant assassin, he was interfered by the judgment that the assassin was dead, and realized that the owner of the skull mask in front of him was not his servant, but the enemy who killed his servant. Without any hesitation, his right hand loosened the cross, ignoring the wound that had not yet healed, and pulled out a new black key from his shirt. There was still a small part of the magic power that was used to strengthen the body by the command seal. In this dangerous situation, Kotamin Kairai could only choose to fight hard. Without any expression on his face, he poured his magic power into the hilt of the black key sword, condensing it into a sharp blade. Bang! He pushed hard with his heels, and a strong thrust burst out. Amid the sound of the ground suddenly sinking, Kotamin Kairai's body rushed out. With a low shout, he used the force-using technique of Bajikan, and the strong force extending from his heels swung around his waist, and finally gathered in his hands holding the 6 black keys. With a strong explosive force, he stabbed at Jingmai's body, like the claws of a beast. Heresy. Looking at Kotamin Kairai rushing towards him, Jingmai only said one word. The Assassins, or the Assassins, was originally a branch of the Shia sect of the Ishmaelian religion. For her, as the leader of the Assassins, members of the Sunni sect were heretics, and Protestants and Catholics were naturally heretics as well. As a Catholic organization, members of the Holy Church were heretics for Jingmai. Moreover, a human being fighting against herself, he was not knowing whether to live or die. Hassan was a pure assassin, using the skills acquired through physical and mental training to kill her targets. Even though she was specialized in poison, as a servant, she was better than ordinary humans in close combat. The dagger swam between her fingers, and the poison flowed through her body, emitting outwards with her movements. Whoosh! Her body was looming, and Jingmai's body came to Kotamin Kairai at an extremely fast speed, far exceeding Kotamin Kairai's speed, and easily dodged Kotamin Kairai's heavy punch. However, at this moment, Kotamin Kairai's black keys, which had been slashing forward, burst out again. No, not burst out again. The initial slash still had room for improvement. Jingmai realized this when she saw the 3 black keys slashing in front of her. Then, it's useless. If it were from the perspective of ordinary humans, or if it was used on the Husan she killed, this move could easily kill them, but it didn't work for her. The mirror images that were devoured and recreated by the Qin people would be strengthened because of the Qin people's powerful strength. However, these mirror image servants were not strengthened. The Qin people deliberately removed the strengthened parts and retained the original strength of their servants. She was not stronger than before she was devoured. However, even so, she also had A+ level agility, 50 times the agility of ordinary people, and could burst to 100 times that of ordinary people. Without any burst, facing Kotamin Kairai's attack, Jingmai's bare feet gently pushed the toes, and her body dodged very easily, just avoiding the black key that Kotamin Kairai cut out. She also avoided the attack of the fire magic that Tozaka Tokiomi had planned for a long time. Then, the hands covered with poison hugged Kotamin Kairai from behind, and the terrifying poison instantly corroded the body that was strengthened by magic power from the command seal, but had little left in the fierce action. Then, the sharp dagger also pierced his back and pierced into his heart. His eyes widened, Kai's lips turned red, and blood flowed back from his throat. His body, which was rapidly corroded by the poison, became weak at an extremely fast speed. Kai's consciousness was disappearing quickly. Before his last wisp of consciousness disappeared, a black singularity appeared at the edge of Jing's lips. Tentacles like chains stretched out from the black singularity as it expanded into a vortex, binding Kai's body and pulling it into it. With the last glimmer of luck in his sneak attack, which failed, Tasaka Tokiomi no longer delayed, and said in a serious and gentle voice, "Remonstrate with the command spell, King of Heroes." A golden light flashed, and a figure suddenly appeared in front of Tasaka Tokiomi. At the moment when Ramses II raised his staff, Gilgamesh's body and the ship of heaven Vimana disappeared in front of him. However, he did not seem to pause at all, as if he had known about this situation for a long time. As he raised his staff, the Rambo swallowed by the darkness also turned with the rotation of the Dark Night Sun boat under him. The dark power gathered in front of the ram to form a black-shaped pattern. At the same time, the dark temple group behind him reappeared. In the center of the great temple, countless light strips reminiscent of magic circuits emerged from the throne of the central temple, one after another on the floor, walls, and ceiling. The central temple, which had been eroded by the dark and evil power, was instantly filled with the brilliance of magic. The huge great electric ball turned into the anger of the sky and began to ring. Buzz buzz buzz, not bright blue, nor azure blue, nor shining white, but dark thunder. On the Dark Night Sun boat, countless dark beams of light were released from the eye-shaped pattern in front of the ram head. However, in front of the black light thunder shot by the great electric ball, it seemed insignificant. The shocking and horrifying black lightning was launched in the midst of jet black beams. The destination was the Tazaka residence. "Tokiomi, you idiot!" Gilgamesh cursed the moment he appeared. At the same time, a spear emerged from the ripples of light around him and shot at Jin'ai. Because of Jin'ai's threat, Tazaka Tokiomi had to use the command spell. Although he knew that it might cause dissatisfaction, he never thought that he would be cursed like this. However, Gilgamesh did not continue to pay attention to him. Around him, countless ripples of light emerged, and gorgeous shields that were undoubtedly comparable to the treasures poured out from the gate of Babylon. At the same time, Jin'ai, who had dodged Gilgamesh's attack, quickly retreated. However, it was still too late. The jet black lightning had arrived. P.S. Yes, it was Tokiomi's fault. Laughs. Chapter 435, Jin Shan's exit. Boom boom boom. The heart-pounding and shocking black light thunder tore the earth apart. The Tozaka residence, which was like a magic fortress and covered with nearly 100 kinds of defensive magic, was easily shattered like a piece of paper under the bombardment of the huge black thunder beam. Jing, who barely avoided Gilgamesh's attack, also kept retreating, and her whole body was blown into pieces. A huge pit with a diameter of more than 100 meters, bottomless and unknown depth, appeared on the ground. The entire pit seemed extremely cold, and the surface of the huge pit was covered with layers of gray-black frost. In such a huge pit, only one place was safe. Dozens of treasure-level shields were stacked together, blocking in front of them, firmly protecting an area of less than 3 square meters. However, these dozens of shields were almost all destroyed under this bombardment, leaving only the 6 shields closest to Gilgamesh and Tozaka Tokiomi intact, but they were also stained with gray-black frost. Light and heat were all swallowed by the terrifying black lightning beam. However, although it was able to protect it, the huge earth block below was completely destroyed and began to fall without any support. Anger was revealed in the ruby-like snake eyes. The skyboat made of gold and emeralds emerged from the ripples of light under his feet and caught his body and Tasaka Tokiomi's body. Then, the skyboat rose, and Gilgamesh flew to a higher position than Ramses II, who was driving the solar boat towards him quickly. The next moment, golden ripples appeared on Gilgamesh's raised right hand. HMPH. The sun, although this black is really filthy, the power is worthy of praise. But Gilgamesh opened the treasure house, but this time, he did not open the gate of Babylon and summon countless weapons, but only took out a mere sword. No, It's more like a cane than a sword. It has a hilt and a guard, and its length is similar to that of an ordinary long sword. The most critical part of the sword is far from the traditional sword. It only has 3 cylinders tightly connected, and the blunt blade is twisted into a spiral. The 3 cylinders are slowly wound together like a chain, and they are intertwined and extended. Behind Gilgamesh, Tasaka Tokiomi, whose body has not yet fully recovered from the poison of silence, looked at the weapon in Gilgamesh's hand and couldn't help muttering to himself, "Ea," a very short word. In Mesopotamian mythology, the name of Babylon is Ea, and it is one of the 7 gods of Mesopotamia. The 4 main gods of the 7 gods are Anu, the god of the sky; Enlil, the god of storms; Enki, the god of water and the father of the earth; and Ki, the mother of the earth. Ea is the great god Ea, which means Enki. In the Sumerian language, En means king, and Ki means earth. This weapon has the name of a god. This weapon is a symbol of the evolution of the earth and the rotation of the surface. The next moment, Gilgamesh smiled proudly while watching the dark night solar ship flying quickly and the huge shadow of the temple group behind Ramses II. Of course he could be proud, because this weapon was worthy of his pride. This was Gilgamesh's final treasure. Even among the many treasures held by all the heroic spirits, it was regarded as one of the top weapons. The sword, named after the gods in Mesopotamian mythology and representing the myth of creation, rotated the earth, compressed the wind pressure, and used the power close to the force of splitting space to change the space itself, forming the destructive force of the space fault, and crushed all the enemies. The sword that can split the world. As Gilgamesh proudly raised the weapon in his hand, the 3 sections of the millstone-like cylinder echoed the movement of the celestial sphere, and each rubbed and rotated with a weight and force that matched the movement of the earth's crust. The huge magic power rolling out was immeasurable. Tasaka Tokiomi was shocked when he saw this weapon that didn't look like a sword at all. Ramses II, who was far away, looked at Gilgamesh's weapon, and his pupils, which had been infected by darkness, showed surprise. This was a powerful treasure with a power comparable to that of the earth god Geb. Unlike the ones he had seen before, this thing was a weapon that truly belonged to Gilgamesh. Without any hesitation, Ramses II gathered his magic power, and even released the dark night solar ship, and flew into the great temple of glory. Because he used the Dentra great electric sphere to release the attack that spread out and had the power to destroy the city, the defense of the great temple of glory had been completely lifted. Now, he needed to use all his magic power on defense. His treasure, the great temple of glory composite, was a treasure for rectification. The treasure for rectification, which was powered by the wheel of suppression, was used to fight against disasters when the world underwent major changes and disasters were about to occur. It was usually useless, and it could be said that it became stronger when it encountered stronger enemies. The stronger the disaster, the stronger the defense. In front of him, the weapon in the hand of this golden hero king, even if it has not been activated, is undoubtedly a disaster. Today, I will personally show you the laws of the world. Gilgamesh raised his arm high above his head, and the sword of origin began to slowly speed up. Each turn was faster and faster. And at this moment, a black singularity suddenly appeared, turning into a dark light, flashing across Gilgamesh's body. "Although I'm sorry, I can't let you continue." A young man with dark chain-like lines all over his body and a dark A-shaped curve on his forehead emerged with the dark light. It was Qin Ren. Or rather, it was Qin Ren's clone. His will incarnation was not here, and was undergoing an hour-long upgrade. The one acting here was the self-image created by his will incarnation. He had a part of the power of Qin Ren's will incarnation. He was just watching. As for why he suddenly appeared and interrupted the battle between Jinshinshan and Lair, because of the EA in Gilgamesh's hand, he was not afraid of how powerful Gilgamesh's treasure was. As a servant, as the incarnation of a heroic spirit, even if this EA hit him in the face 10 or 100 times, it would not cause any harm to Qin Ren. In FSF, Enkidu and Gilgamesh used EA and another treasure for rectification, 2 treasures with the same release language, to blast each other, and only caused a few kilometers of crater-like destruction. This power was not as powerful as the destruction he and Horus caused in Egypt in the world of God Slayer. If Gilgamesh's real body came over and attacked with Ea, he could still take it seriously. However, it was not strong enough. Ea was very strong, able to cut off attacks in space, and could ignore defense. Only attacks of equal power against rectification could offset it. Rare had a treasure for rectification, but unfortunately after being swallowed by him, the wheel of suppression, that is, the restraining force Gaia and Alea, would no longer provide power for Rare to defend. However, Qin Ren had attacks of equal power. For example, the broken door that is being used now. Qin Ren silently recited the name of the skill in his heart, and his sight turned to Gilgamesh. On Gilgamesh's body, the black line that can tear time and space, cut off cause and effect, and destroy everything is slowly expanding, and Gilgamesh's breath is also disappearing rapidly, and the divine light representing intellect in his ruby-like snake pupils is quickly extinguished. I'm so sorry, Jin Shan Shan. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for using EA to analyze the world. You can do other things, but you can't analyze the world. As Qin Ren's voice fell, several black singularities emerged around Gilgamesh, and black chain-like tentacles stretched out and pulled his body, which was broken into 2 pieces. In P.S. Jin Shan Shan's action figure, don't want 1000, don't want 100, just 98. Premium. Chapter 436, Restrained, Gaia and Alea. Qin Ren watched the 2 halves of the golden corpse disappear into the dark vortex with an indifferent expression. In the Type Moon world, there is also a setting of power, also known as miracle. How to say it? It is similar to the power in the God Slayer world. It is a power that is higher than the treasure. The power possessed by the gods is what the gods control in mythology, and what they can do. In fact, it is roughly similar to the power in the God Slayer world. If it is Zeus, he will have the power to control thunder. Other gods also have the power to control time, control the earth, etc. Creating the world is also a power that has appeared in various myths. The heroes have treasures, and the gods have power in addition to treasures. However, such power has been weakened due to the change of times, with the end of the mythological era and the advent of the human era. If you want to use power, you need to pay a price close to self-destruction. Those gods who were originally gods and possessed power, after being demoted from gods to heroic spirits, and then summoned as servants, cannot use their power. Powers that have appeared in Type Moon, such as Tiamat's beast power as the goddess of creation and the mother of all things. In her legend, as the mother of all things, her beast power allows her to have special attack effects on humans, heroes, gods, and everything born from the mother's womb. There are also Mogara, Sesholin, etc. Why do I mention this? Because Ea, the god of the earth, or Enki, is a weapon with the power of gods. Even if Jin Shan Shan does not have a god-level spiritual foundation, he cannot fundamentally exert the power of Ea, but being unable to exert it does not mean that it cannot be exerted. The reason why the Qin people suddenly took action was because of the restraining force. When he began to erode this timeline and transform this timeline into an anomalous zone, the restraining force began to notice him and resisted. However, the restraining force did not successfully resist his erosion. The earth in this timeline has been corrupted by him, and a lost belt has been formed here. The power of the restraining force has been isolated. However, it has not been completely isolated. Because Qin Ren wanted to watch the show, he specially left a channel so that this world could still communicate with the throne of heroes and summon heroes. When Gilgamesh's sword of separation, Ea, first appeared in the world, it needed to analyze the laws of the world. This is why Qin Ren really took action. It's not that Gilgamesh analyzed the laws of the world or something, but that the restraining force tried to interfere with the lost belt through Ea. Qin Ren would never allow it even if he was stupid. If the restraining force succeeded and summoned a large number of heroes again, he would have to spend more effort. That's not the first time the restraining force has done this. Lars' decision to let the Grand Temple of Glory descend into the world was not really the action of Lauren Nito. As a treasure of rectification, The Grand Temple of Glory has the effect of resisting disasters, and Qin Ren's erosion of reality and transformation of this world into a lost belt is a disaster. Then, if the glorious composite Grand Temple, as a treasure for rectification, is really dropped, the Qin people will face strong resistance in their efforts to completely complete the lost belt. The Qin people even speculated that if the glorious composite Grand Temple was really completed, a large number of heroic spirits would instantly emerge from the Grand Temple. The previous action of wanting to make all the heroic spirit servants into figurines was indeed a whim, but making Ratu into a figurine was not a whim. After being touched by Ratu once, Gilgamesh pointed his finger at him again. He was really not afraid of Ea in Gilgamesh's hands. After all, with the spiritual base of the servant Jin Shanshan, even if Ea was fully released, it would not be possible to create the effect of creating the world. The inhibitory force is divided into Gaia and Ala. Simply put, it is a safety device to protect the earth and humans. The seat of heroes is quite special. Although it is related to the two restraining forces, it is not under the control of these two restraining forces. In the Second World Incident book, it is explained that the seat of heroes is actually the realm record belt, Ghostliner. Anyone who has made contributions in the universe can go to the seat of heroes, not just the Earth. If there are beings on other planets that can be recorded in the realm record belt, they will also go up. However, on Earth, only the heroic spirits on Earth can be summoned. Gaia is the will of this planet, that is, the Earth, and is the safety device of the Earth. It has a higher divinity. The elves and gods that are not related to humans are all on Gaia's side. In fact, gods are like the gods of the Yellow Sand world, which are Qin Ren's clones, like limbs, but independent existences. The gods of Type Moon are basically Gaia, that is, the tentacles of the Earth's will. Of course, if I remember correctly, in the Type Moon setting, there are also gods from other planets, that is, the tentacles of the will of other planets. From this perspective, Qin Ren himself can also be regarded as the restraining force of the Yellow Sand world, equivalent to Gaia in the Yellow Sand world. The connection between Gaia and the Throne of Heroes is that his tentacles, those gods, can squeeze into the Throne of Heroes by themselves through the motion. Allah is the will of primates, the collective unconsciousness. The relationship between him and the Throne of Heroes is that there is an overlap with the Throne of Heroes. To be precise, it overlaps with the Throne of Heroes on Earth. As a race on Earth, humans are an important part of the record belt of the realm of the Throne of Heroes. It can be said that most of the existences on the Throne of Heroes are humans. Allah will take the initiative to sign contracts with some targets and let them go to the Throne of Heroes. However, although they are heroes, they are actually under the jurisdiction of Allah and have another name, Guardian. Most of the resistance to the suppression force encountered by the Qin people before came from the Allah side. Resistance on the Gaia side did exist, but the Gaia side was originally short of manpower, and because the Qin people slaughtered and absorbed various gods after coming to this timeline, and in the human era, the gods disappeared, and the resistance ability of the Gaia side was pitifully low. However, Ea, which is related to the gods, can be indirectly interfered with by Gaia. In contrast, the Great Temple of Glory, which is related to the gods and is the result of human civilization, can be interfered with by Allah and Gaia at the same time. The fundamental reason why Qin Ren killed Jin Shanshan was to prevent Gaia from interfering with the Lost Belt through Ea. After preventing Gaia from interfering again, Qin Ren seemed to feel something again and couldn't help but pursed his lips. Allah was also interfering. Fortunately, he noticed it in time. Otherwise the incarnation of Will was upgrading and couldn't wake up. His mirror clone really couldn't handle it. You guys come together every time. I'm embarrassed. What about the stupid action that you said you would go one by one and send one by one? These guardians are workers who actively signed a contract with the world and will appear when there is a primate hazard. A white-haired man in a red cloak suddenly appeared on the edge of Fuyuki City. P.S. The initial form is the key to the king's treasure. When it is used for the first time in the world, it must analyze the laws of the world before it can be used. The encyclopedia says that this setting is in Jun Urabuchi's Fate, 0, Bunko version, Volume 4, 2011, Act 10. but some people say that this is a rumor. Anyway, in the final analysis, I didn't write about analyzing the laws of the world, but wrote from the perspective of power, from the perspective of the hostility between the Qin people and the restraining force. Chapter 437 Heroic Spirit Tamiya. This is not just bad anymore. The short white hair that had turned white due to the backlash of magic swayed gently as the body stood up. The two sections of the red coat made of holy cloth, like a cloak, wrapped the black tights made of the same material underneath. What kind of situation could cause such a disaster? The white-haired man frowned, and as the lightning-shaped eyebrows at the end of his eyebrows frowned, his whole face gradually became ugly. The tall man glanced around. He could even see strange creatures with his naked eyes. Not only were the puppies and cats, insects and spiders all demonized and turned into demonic creatures, but he could also feel a strange sense of evil in the air he breathed. It seemed that even bacteria and other creatures were demonized. I originally wanted to find a master to sign a contract and obtain a person who would provide magic power, but now, he was no longer sure if there were any humans here who could become his master. However, although his magic skills were extremely poor and he was only good at that type of magic, he could still sense the gradually thickening magic in the air. However, as a spirit body that was gathered by magic, he no longer had the excellent magic circuits he had in his life. It was difficult to absorb the magic in the air, no matter what traps there were in this strange magic. However, at this moment, a young woman with short black hair appeared in his field of vision. The other party had a very cold face, holding a pistol in her hand and firing at several monsters continuously. However, it was obvious that after hitting the monster's head, although the monster wailed and roared and retreated, it did not die. Seeing that the woman was being attacked by several demonized creatures whose prototypes were probably cats and dogs, he could not accurately judge whether those strange beasts that were larger than adults were cats and dogs. What a terrible environment! Without changing his expression, the white-haired man raised his hand, and a black longbow appeared on his left hand. A long sword-like weapon appeared in his right hand. When he put the weapon on the black bow, the long sword deformed and twisted, turning into an arrow. Swoosh! With a sharp sound, the arrow tore through the air, creating ripples, and pierced through the heads of the two monsters. The heads were shot through, and the two demonic monsters fell to the ground. Ah! The black-haired woman took 2 steps back swiftly, and the pistol in her hand subconsciously pointed at the white-haired man. Miss, don't point your gun at others casually. I am not your enemy. The white-haired man said this, and the black bow in his hand and the arrow that pierced through the two monsters and flew hundreds of meters away dissipated and disappeared together. Ordinary human weapons. This kind of firearms can't hurt the servant at all, and he doesn't need to defend himself. Moreover, this woman, are you, Archer? The short-haired woman, Hisayimiya, looked at the other party's action of putting away the weapon, and also pressed down with both hands, pointing the muzzle of the gun to the ground. Let's call him Archer. And he showed up to deal with the current situation. The white-haired man turned his eyes around and explained simply, anyway, I need a master to supply me with magic power. Need a master? Hisayimiya frowned, looked at the other party and said, a masterless servant? Anyway, as soon as possible. I need to deal with the current situation quickly. The white-haired man said, if you want to call me Archer, you can call me Emiya. Emiya? Hisayimiya narrowed his eyes, and then said in a deep voice, I understand, I need some time. Glancing at the white-haired man, Hisayimiya turned around and took out the communicator. Hello, Kiritsugu. Hello. Hey, don't run. If you are a man, fight head-on. Amidst the roar of a giant beast, a strange humanoid creature with a body that was extremely deformed and full of spikes, a bloody mouth that stretched to the root of his ears, waved his scarlet claws, exerted force on his legs suddenly, and a terrifying force burst out. After the ground shattered, his body shot out like a cannonball and grabbed the handsome warrior in front, fighting a monster like a berserker head-on. I'm not that stupid. Diarmid dodged Kuchulain who was passing by him quickly, and the red spear in his hand turned into a scarlet trajectory and slashed towards Kuchulain's neck. Swish! Without any dodging action, Kuchulain's neck was torn apart, and scarlet liquid splashed out of his neck and filled the air. The next moment, Qin landed on all fours and turned back quickly like a beast. Boom! As the ground shattered again, spiderweb-like cracks cracked open, and Qin pounced on Diarmuid again. Diarmuid quickly tightened his red spear once again, using both hands to block the giant claws of Qin. Clang! With the sound of metal clashing, Diarmuid kept blocking the attack and was pushed back dozens of meters, with his legs plowing a trench on the ground. "It's completely useless," Diarmuid said in his mind, and his eyes swept over Qin in front of him, the throat of the monster in front of him, which had just been cut by his treasure. The magic-breaking red rose had healed in a short moment. What kind of monster-like self-healing ability is this? There was only one wound on the opponent's body. Just now, after he realized the opponent's self-healing ability, he used the yellow rose of certain destruction and the curse effect attached to the gun to prevent the opponent's wound from healing. Although the yellow rose of certain destruction successfully pierced the opponent's heart after his several luring operations. However, when he used the shotgun to try to penetrate the opponent's heart and pierce the spirit core, he found an abnormality. The opponent, no spirit core? This situation surprised him greatly. After all, he expected to successfully penetrate the spirit core and continue to fight when the opponent's body functions rapidly faded, until the opponent completely lost strength. However, because of this situation, his expectation was miscalculated. In a hurry, the yellow rose was knocked away, and he could not get close to the yellow rose at all. Now, using the red rose that can break magic, he can't deal with the monster in front of him at all. He certainly knew the legend of Qin. The monster-like posture in front of him completely matched Diarmuid's impression. However, it matched. The opponent's strength, speed, and reaction were all faster than he imagined. If the opponent had not lost his mind due to frenzy and had no awareness of timely defense, he would not have been able to defeat the monster in front of him. And, what's worse, the wound that he had just penetrated and the yellow rose that must be destroyed was constantly bleeding. Why is it bad? Beasts the size of calves are wandering around, constantly attacking various animals and humans. Chapter 438 Mordred vs. Altria. The battle between Mordred and Altria was over. Altria's sword of victory, the brilliant golden sword, pierced through Mordred's armor and her heart. Mordred closed her eyes as the golden sword pierced through her chest. Originally, it should have been over. But the next moment, her intuition told her that she had not caused enough effective damage to the opponent, and the opponent would not die. The intuition that foreshadowed danger and was close to peeping into the future made her see a picture. Mordred rose up again, and the Silver King sword Clarent in his hand slashed at her neck and cut off her head. Such a picture made Altria have no hesitation, and she immediately pulled out the sword of victory that was inserted into Mordred's chest. At the same time, the magic power was released. With a bang, countless rubble flew up from the ground that was shattered beyond recognition, and Altria's body retreated rapidly. Almost at the same time, Mordred's clear eyes began to be infected by black and red, and then opened again. "Come on, Arthur," a sharp, distorted voice. The next moment, Mordred's armor was mostly broken, and his petite body was like a lion, roaring. The silver royal sword Clarent flashed a long red arc in Mordred's hand as he swooped down at the speed of sound like a fighter plane. Magic power was released. By releasing the magic power stored in her weapons and body, Mordred could be as fast as a bullet. At the same time, her body began to become strange. On her face, dark, chain-like lines spread from her neck to her face, and the two canine teeth that should have looked cute on a girl's body became sharper and more ferocious, and the silver sword in her hand became more and more strange. The gorgeous royal sword that originally emitted silver light was gradually covered with black and red, and its shape became ugly and distorted. Under the erosion of the evil power, Mordred's hatred and resentment turned the originally pure king sword Clarent into a sword of sin and evil. The surging evil feeling wrapped around the sword. Along with the sound of the sonic boom, the heavy armor that had been broken into pieces began to shake violently, and the speed of its owner had already exceeded the speed of sound. Her leap also caused ripples of the sonic boom, and the violent wind blew over the surrounding building debris. Clarent. The next moment, Mordred, who was gradually becoming demonized and his mind became more and more unstable, roared, "Blood Arthur! Blood-stained Arthur! Rebellion against my gorgeous father." Mordred was covered with black and red evil power. Amid the noisy sound of the silver sword clarent, which was like the roar of a demon, a black and red flame several dozen meters long extended from the tip of the sword and turned into a magic sword several dozen meters long. And this magic sword, in the next moment, with Mordred's roar, slashed towards Altria's body. Facing her roar, Altria looked at the evil posture of the king's sword clarent, which should have been placed in her treasure house and did not want to be handed over to any successor. Altria's eyes were complicated, but her actions were firm, without the slightest hesitation, and she resolutely released the treasure. Boom! The Wind King's barrier suddenly exploded, and the golden sword was scattered with the roar of the storm, and its true form was revealed. The golden light enveloped the sword body, illuminating the surrounding darkness, just like seeing a ray of dawn in the long night. Holding this sword, it was as if a vow of victory was promised. The red dragon blood in Altria's body was freed from the bondage, and the magic power that was constantly generated was all injected into her wrists holding the hilt, and she raised the golden sword in her hand high. Excalibur, sword of contracted victory. Along with her firm voice, full of hope, the light of the knight's faith condensed infinitely and merged into a dazzling beam of light. Then, blast out, the gushing golden light stream rolled up a storm vortex, tore the earth, and collided with the power of the evil magic sword. When the black and red intertwined with the golden color, it seemed that the whole world became quiet. The sound of the wind, the shaking sound of the broken armor and the agitated silver blue skirt armor, the friction sound of the solid metal foot armor in the ground, all the sounds seemed to disappear. The terrifying energy compressed and then exploded. Obviously, the golden light was more powerful than the light of the black and red evil magic sword. The golden light cut through the turbid black and red, breaking the black and red into black waves, and was cut to both sides. Behind the cut black light, Mordred, who was facing the impact of the golden light head-on, let out a sharp scream. As if purified, Mordred's sight, which was stained by black, gradually became clear. She silently watched this fading moment, as if her body and mind were taken away by the dazzling brilliance. Yes, that's right, she has always been looking forward to it, always watching this light from afar, watching the owner of this light. In the past, she had also chased this light as a knight of the Round Table. The particularly vivid memory before death brought Mordred back to the distant past. What did she want? She signed a contract with the thief who stole the fragments of the Round Table. Her purpose was to fight Arthur and her father again. But what she actually wanted was only recognition. She was the heir of King Arthur. She needed King Arthur and her father's recognition. She had the qualifications to become a king. Even if it was the sword and the stone, she would definitely be able to pull it out. With this thought in mind, her body was torn into pieces by the burning and sacred light stream and disappeared in front of Altria. Looking at her disappearing figure, Altria's hands were shaking. After exhausting all her strength, she finally thrust the sword of promised victory into the opponent's chest. However, the opponent did not die. Releasing the sword of promised victory, the magic power burst out again, leaving little magic power in her body. Her hands trembled because she was exhausted. Her magic power was almost exhausted. She even had to remove the silver blue skirt armor on her body and the sword of promised victory in her hand to reduce the consumption of magic power. But no one knew if there were other reasons. She turned around, sorting out her extremely troubled mood, and preparing to leave. But at this moment, she once again felt the terrifying gathering of magic power. It was Mordred. The feeling was very similar to that of Mordred just now, but more evil. Arthur, a figure who had completely lost his mind and roared like a beast, rushed towards Altria's back at a high speed. However, at this moment, Altria thought the battle was over and relaxed. Although she noticed the situation in time, in her current situation, even if she condensed the armor immediately and summoned the golden sword again, she would not be able to block this attack in time. But at this moment, boom, a twisted, spiral arrow suddenly shot from the side, carrying terrifying magic power, piercing through the body of the violently resurrected mirror Mordred, who was rushing towards Altria. shattering it. Altria, who condensed the armor and the sword of the promised victory, looked at the black and red evil power fragments that were controlled and floating in astonishment and confusion. Now is not the time to dawdle, there are other things to deal with, Saber. A gentle male voice sounded. Hearing the voice, Altria turned her head, and then she saw two people, and couldn't help but miss Mia. Is this Archer? The first one was the young woman with short medium hair holding a pistol. The second one was a white-haired man wearing a cape-like red coat and holding a black bow. This man was a servant. Hearing her words, Mia just nodded, and then said, "Where's the madam?" "I'm here." Iris Vio walked out from the other side, and fixed her eyes on the white-haired man with the same puzzled look. "What is this?" "Things are complicated," Mia said. "Anyway, Kiritsugu said that we should meet up with him immediately and unite with other masters who can be united. P.S. Originally, I typed Altria, but in the end, my fingers moved too fast, and Leo became Li-A, and I got and Alto. PS2, Servant and Master jointly formed a strategic alliance to defeat the boss Qin Ren. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 439 Joint Operations. Hahaha. Keep going. The power of the swift feet made the center of the building cave in, as countless pieces of glass and concrete fell at the speed of free fall. The monster, which was dozens of times faster than them and set off a sonic boom, fell rapidly. Just like the legend, Qin, who had transformed into a monster, was gradually dominated by the beast, and rushed towards Diarmuid again like a ferocious beast. Gaidirg, the red rose that breaks the magic. Although the real name does not need to be chanted to exert the effect of the treasure, Diarmuid still shouted, holding the rose-red spear tightly with both hands, and rushed towards the monster Qin who was smashing towards him like a falling meteorite. Ding! With an extremely short metallic collision sound, his magic-destroying red rose pierced through the opponent's scarlet claws and pierced into the opponent's left shoulder. However, Diarmuid was not happy about this. Almost at the moment when the weapon pierced, he pulled back the spear, with the lower end withdrawn and the front end pressed down, making a vertical chopping motion. At the same time, his legs, which had been tense for a long time, burst out with magic power. Boom! Qin's body fell to the ground, like a cannonball landing, and the shockwave spread over a range of tens of meters wide, raising a wave of dust. With the help of Qin's power and the red rose as a lever, Diarmuid's body flew out in one direction at a speed that was almost as fast as Qin. On his flying path, a dark yellow shotgun was stuck in the ground. The yellow rose that must be destroyed. This was his goal. However, just as he flew out quickly and was less than 100 meters away from the yellow rose, a loud noise broke out in the direction of Qin. Boom! In the dust wave, a black and red figure penetrated the dust wave and chased after him at a terrifying speed. The speed was very fast, not much slower than his speed. It's a monster. Diarmuid sighed in his heart. He has A+ agility, 50 times the physical strength of an ordinary person, and can burst out with a speed equivalent to 100 times that of an ordinary person. With the help of the opponent's impact and his own strength, he left the place at this speed, but the opponent's speed was still faster than him. If he didn't know that it was Qin, he would really think that thing was a powerful fantasy beast. No, a demon beast. He held a spear tightly with both hands. The right hand was tight, and the left hand was relaxed. After estimating the distance, Diarmuid's right hand burst out with magic power and swung the magic-breaking red rose hard. The red rose was like a long whip, drawing a rose-red trajectory and whipping Qin who was flying towards him. Without any pause, Qin, who was violent and dominated by animal nature, stretched out his claws with scarlet bone thorns and collided with the magic-breaking red rose. Although he was dominated by the beast, he did not completely lose his warrior instinct. Diarmuid's right hand shook, and he almost lost his grip on the red rose. but he still achieved his goal. Following the force of Cuchulain's slapping of the red rose, Diarmuid's body spun a circle, and the red rose in his hand lifted up the yellow rose pistol on the ground, and his left hand reached out and grabbed the yellow rose. When his body turned back to face Cuchulain, Diarmuid pressed the spear under his ribs and was about to stab it out at the same time. However, the moment he stabbed, Diarmuid felt something was wrong, because the opponent did not swing his claws like a beast as he had expected. In the opponent's claws, there was a long spear full of thorns. Gaibolg, the spear that pierces the dead thorns. With a voice full of restlessness and murderous intent, Cuchulain's strong right claw tightly grasped the long spear full of scarlet thorns and swept it towards him. If you get hit, you will die. There was no reason. It was purely a warrior's instinct that if he took this blow, he would definitely die. Extremely, Diarmuid raised his two spears, trying to block in front of him and resist this sweep. Clang, boom. Diarmuid was suddenly blown away with a loud noise, leaving a white track in the air and crashing into a building. Cuchulain's movements were slightly stagnant because of the attack, and his body fell to the ground. Then, the next moment, he did not chase after him, but raised his weapon. The weapon in his hand was not his Gaibolg, which had the ability to reverse cause and effect, and the result of piercing the opponent's heart as long as it was released. It was the closest description of the legendary Gaibolg. As long as it pierced the opponent, the 30 barbs on the spear would disembowel the opponent, and being cut by its sharp blade would leave a saw-like scar, and no matter how deep it was stabbed, it could be easily pulled out. The Gaibolg in his hand was made from the druid staff he used as a caster before, which was enchanted by the power of the Qin people. This Gaibolg was the closest to the current form of Cuchulain. When he raised the spear in his hand, the magic power in Cuchulain's body flowed rapidly in an extremely terrifying form, regardless of the consequences, and constantly strengthened his already terrifyingly powerful body. Then Gaibolg, the spear of piercing and killing, completely ignoring how much power his body could withstand, he used up all the power of his body and threw the thorn spear in his hand towards Diarmuid with all his strength. Boom! It was faster and more fierce than Cuchulain's wild beast-like run, and circles of scarlet ripples spread in the air. At the moment of throwing the spear, Cuchulain's right arm was completely shattered, but it was reborn again at a speed visible to the naked eye. No one could understand the pain, and Cuchulain himself seemed to be completely unconcerned. After throwing the spear, before his body recovered, he chased the flying spear like a wild beast again, chasing in the direction of Diarmuid. But at this moment, an arrow pierced through the air and shot towards him from a distance. His body braked suddenly, Cuchulain's head tilted back, and at the same time he opened his mouth, biting the arrow with his sharp teeth. Then, bang! Accompanied by a crisp metal shattering sound, the arrow was broken by his teeth. At the same time, a voice was heard in the building that Diarmuid flew into. "Strike air!" The iron hammer of the King of Wind. Then, a burst of whirlwind burst out from the building. "Who are you?" Diarmuid, who fell to the ground and half leaned against the wall, glanced at the crack next to his head where the spear had been deflected, and turned his gaze to the woman in the silver-blue skirt armor in front of him. "My master and your master have formed an alliance." The one who appeared was naturally Saber Altria. She gripped the sword tightly, looking through the hole beside Diarmuid, looking at the huge pit several hundred meters wide, and continued, "Now we need to eliminate the berserker first." Chapter 440 Chaldea arrives. Boom. Rumlai. The explosion sounded again, and the cold voice of Lancer Artoria sounded. Sigh with the call of his master. The warhorse Ramlai screamed, raised his hooves, and landed heavily. Boom. The ground cracked, and like a heavy chariot, the armored warhorse launched another charge towards the berserker Lancelot in front. At the same time, the mature and tall Lancer Artoria raised the black and red spear in her hand and launched a bombardment at Lancelot. Lancelot, who was bound by Zhang Yan's berserk spell, roared wildly, with anger on his face, waving the long sword in his hand, the indestructible lake light, and slashed at the chariot attacking from the front. Clang! However, at the moment when the long sword collided with the knight's spear, Lancelot's body flexibly dodged to the side and avoided the impact of the warhorse. Rumble, 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 the horse's hooves rolled up the storm, rushing out a long track, rushing hundreds of meters away. After rolling to the side, Lancelot did not rush over immediately to launch another attack. His restless eyes, imprisoned by the threshold of madness, swept to the heavy motorcycle next to him. Without any hesitation, his right hand was placed on the motorcycle. The black on the armor, like ink, quickly eroded the motorcycle. Knight of Honor. Knights do not die with bare hands. It comes from the legend that he defeated his opponent Philip with a branch without a sword. Whatever his hands touch, whether it is pots and pans, as long as it meets the concept of weapons, can be eroded by magic into a D-level treasure. The black motorcycle grew black and red lines. In an instant, Lancelot got on the motorcycle, and the engine infiltrated with magic roared. In the roar like the roar of a wild beast, black and red tracks emerged from the two exhaust pipes and rushed towards the war horse in the distance. Nice mount. Altria's cold expression did not change at all, and her fighting spirit was still fervent. She pulled the reins with her left hand, and the war horse Randall swept the storm with its four hooves, drew a complete arc on the ground, turned the corner, and rushed towards Lancelot, who was driving a heavy motorcycle towards her. But at this moment, a white shadow came from the sky at a very fast speed. Bellerophon. With a loud shout, the dazzling white color came from the sky at a very fast speed. It was a white Pegasus with wings, the legendary Pegasus, and the one riding on it was a tall woman with long purple hair. However, it was obvious that this was not the time to explore her identity in detail. However, the most critical problem was that she had no room to dodge at the moment. In front of her was Lancelot holding the Wui Lake light and attacking her, and on the side and above was the attacking Pegasus. And Ram, who was rushing, had no way to dodge quickly. Then, there was only one way. As a warrior, Lancer Artoria responded urgently. The black-red spear in her hand, like a thorn, condensed the momentum of being the king of storms and the king of wild hunt. The magic power gathered on the black-red knight's spear, strike air, Wind King hammer. It was no longer a storm that was aimed at attacking like a sharp blade, but spread out. Moreover, the target was not Lancelot on the opposite side, nor the Pegasus that attacked. The spiral storm burst out instantly, turning into a wild hunting wind beast and rushing out, crashing into the ground. Boom! The violent storm collapsed and turned into a powerful impact, causing Ran to deviate from his trajectory. Lancelot, who had not lost his warrior instinct at all, had already reacted to avoid the Pegasus that was rushing in. At the moment when Artoria blasted the storm, he also used this storm to drive the heavy motorcycle under him to the side. Ding! After the knight's lance and long sword collided, Artoria and Lancelot passed each other. Then, twisting their bodies at the same time, the long sword and long lance in their hands launched an attack on the attacking white Pegasus in tacit understanding. Not good. The purple-haired servant riding Pegasus sensed this situation, and the magic eyes under the eye mask couldn't help but shrink, but she still reacted in time. A crisp metallic sound rang out, and the servant riding Pegasus threw out a chain, drawing a curved arc in front. Clang, clang, two consecutive metal collision sounds spread out, and the Pegasus's horse hoof fell on the ground. Boom! Accompanied by a violent impact, the Pegasus's horse hoof wrapped in magic power, hit a huge dent of dozens of meters on the ground, releasing a shock wave. However, neither Lancelot, who was riding a heavy motorcycle, nor Altria, who was riding a warhorse Ranelagh, was directly attacked while they were driving away quickly. The storm from behind only made the two people's speed increase. Danger. A few hundred meters away, sitting on a scarlet horse wrapped in blood, the orange-haired girl saw the female servant riding a white Pegasus being attacked and screamed. It was Fujimaru Ritsuka. Behind her, riding the scarlet warhorse with her, was a middle-aged man wrapped in aristocratic clothes that seemed to be dissolved in the night. In contrast to the black, his face was pale but creepy, and his long light golden hair like silk hung loosely. There was a kind of elegance and a strange temperament of silence and madness, just like the legendary vampire nobles. Grand Duke, hurry, go help Medusa. Fujimaru Ritsuka turned his head and said to the pale man behind him, no problem. Do you want to go with me? The servant called the Grand Duke condensed a strange silver spear in his hand and spoke quietly. "Mr. Magician, it's too dangerous over there." At this time, a man wearing a skull mask and a black cloak beside the two of them spoke. Then, under the black cloak that was used to hide the huge stick-shaped right hand bound with bandages, he stretched out his left hand and took her off the war horse. "You need to stay here, Mr. Magician." "Yes, Senior." The purple-pink-haired girl Mashu came to her and said, "We will go with Mr. Vlad." As she said that, her eyes turned to the man riding a scarlet war horse, who was quiet and elegant, but full of madness and terror. Vlad III, the king and great hero of Romania, killed 20,000 invading soldiers with a piercing machine and was passed down in the world as the legend of vampire Dracula. He is the prototype of the vampire. In this hellish world, servants are summoned as berserkers with the sign of vampires. P.S. Berserker class Grand Duke is a vampire. Rider class Medusa riding a Pegasus is also a monster, not to mention the assassin class Cursed Arm, whose right hand is a devil's hand. Anyway, the others summoned are not normal people. How about you guess? PS2, 4 people riding horses and bikes. I want to have a car race in a Qin mountain. Chapter 441 Chaldean Human Rescue Team. Let your blood moisten my throat. After everyone in Chaldea made the decision, Vlad III rode on the scarlet war horse that he had transformed into a vampire, waved the silver spear in his hand, and charged at the 3 servants on the battlefield. Mashu was also ready to put on her spirit clothes and go to fight, but at this moment, the curse arm beside her stopped her. "Sir Mashu, you are better at protection. Please stay here to protect Sir Magician." The curse arm took 2 steps forward and said at the same time, "Sir Detective and Mephisto will go to check the changes in other places. Sir Magician needs more strict protection." His eyes swept over Mashu and the other servants around Fujimaru Ritsuka. One was a pink-haired girl with sharp horns and sharp tiger teeth on her head, wearing a gorgeous Gothic dress, like a noble heir, with a long tail extending from behind her. The other person was also wearing a gorgeous and elegant gentleman's outfit, but he was not a girl of 13 or 14 years old, but an old man wearing glasses and with neatly combed gray hair. When the cursorist fixed his eyes on him, the other party stared. "No, no, no, Hassan, I'm not planning anything." "Really?" The cursorist kept a suspicious look. "Really, really, I have a contract with the master. How could I plan anything? Ha ha ha." The gentleman-like old man laughed heartily, and no matter how you look at it, he looked like an open-minded old man. Mr. Hassan Mashu wanted to say something, but was interrupted by the cursorist again. "It's okay, I'm just too suspicious." "Sorry, Sir James." The cursorist was silent for a while and apologized to the old man. "It doesn't matter. I am a butterfly, an ordinary professor, and a spider, the leader of evil." The old man laughed heartily, and then showed an elegant smile. "My words did not convince you, but as the person who knows me best, Sherlock dared to let me stay by the master's side. This can explain everything, right?" Cursorist nodded. Compared with the old man's words, the actions of the detective made him trust him more. "But before the detective comes back, Mashu, you should stay by the master's side. The situation here has not been figured out yet, and those monsters corrupted by the power of the devil are also threatening." Cursorist turned the reason to the monsters wandering around and staring at them. Mash thought for a few seconds and nodded in agreement. "Okay, Mr. Hassan." On the side, a girl in a gorgeous dress put her chin on Fujimaru Ritsuka's shoulder and said to the curse arm, "As an idol, protecting the agent is also part of the job. I will protect the fawn. Then the safety of the magician is in your hands." After the curse arm finished speaking, he rushed out. The bandage under the black robe loosened a little. In the gradually expanding evil atmosphere, it turned into a black shadow, pulling out a long trail, and approached the 4 people who were already fighting. On the other side, Holmes and Mephisto came to the ruined Fuyuki City Cathedral Church. "Huey, yes. This environment is really an interesting and wonderful world." Mephisto laughed like a clown, and threw the prop in his hand that looked like a clock and contained strong unstable magic into the mouth of a monster that looked like a demonized dog and was as big as an adult. Then, he put an iron bar through the upper and lower jaws of the monster, nailed it in place, and walked away from the place with a strange smile. Then snap, boom. With the sound of snapping fingers, the magic power surged, and the terrifying explosion instantly split the monster's body, and the bright red flesh and blood flew everywhere. After brushing off the slightly coagulated blood clots on his clothes, Holmes entered the ruins. Looking at the corpse of the priest who was killed and disemboweled by the monster in the ruins, Holmes came to him. Facing the disgusting corpse, Holmes did not fluctuate, but calmly checked the traces around. The first thing Holmes noticed was the fingers of the middle-aged priest. His right hand was holding a cross, and it was obvious that in the previous battle, he used the secret words of the Holy Church to resist the devil. Then, according to the natural situation, the left hand should also hold some props. Of course, there is also the possibility that the other party only has one prop. However, this point can be directly overturned, because Holmes could see that there was a small cross hanging on his chest. Although it was weak, it also had magical power and could be used as a prop for using the secret words. Judging from the fingerprints on the metal cross, the other party had indeed used it. Although he was not a forensic doctor, he had worked with Watson for such a long time, and he was also clear about the reaction of the corpse. After a person dies, due to the cessation of nerve activity and the loss of muscle tension, the muscles of the whole body relax and become soft. Facial expression is lost, pupils are dilated, eyes are slightly open, mouth is slightly open, skin loses elasticity, muscles of the whole body are generally relaxed, and joints are easy to bend, etc. Muscle relaxation is a common phenomenon of corpses, but there are exceptions. For example, at the moment of death, a spasm suddenly occurs. In this case, the muscles of the whole body immediately undergo tonic contraction, and the joints cannot bend, so muscle relaxation does not occur. But in either case, the fingers will not show a natural spread. The deceased must have wanted to do something before he died. Rolling up the sleeves of his left and right hands, Holmes prepared to check other traces on the body. Then, he saw rows of red lines. Without thinking too much, he recognized it. Command seals, and they were different from Chaldea's. The power contained in these command seals was very strong, with strong, targeted control effects, like a curse, and they were also very powerful crystals of magic power, about 10 times the magic power of Chaldea's command seals. And what was involved with such command seals was the Holy Grail War. The servants who appeared in Fuyuki City were not the servants summoned by the Hidden One, but the tools of the war carried out by this city, using servants as familiars to kill each other. So that's it. He got important information. The next moment, Holmes tried to remove it, but he was blocked. A holy power overflowed from the body of the corpse, stopping him from peeling off the command seals from the corpse. Holmes stopped his action immediately, and then his eyes looked at the fingers again. He raised the left hand of the corpse, and at this time he found that the fingertips were stained with unnatural blood. It was an active behavior, the blood stained by the deceased before death. Holmes put his hand back in place, stood up, and his eyes wandered around the body. Soon, he found the target. There was an unnatural blood stain on the hem of the clothes. He lifted the hem and saw blurred blood words in the area covered by the hem of the clothes. JN 424 on the ground. There were blurred blood words with traces of scratches on clothes. If people who do not have Christian faith, they may think that this is an unknown code. However, as a detective, Holmes has seen criminals who believe in Catholicism. For this reason, he even memorized the contents of many important Christian books. Word for word, Holmes recited the words stored in his memory. However, just when Holmes transferred all the command seals to his arms, a man in a black windbreaker entered his field of vision. P.S. Chaldean Human Rescue Team. No, Human Reason is the first chapter of the main storyline. This should be called the Lost Belt Special Operations Team. Holmes, the Professor, the Grand Duke Dragon, the Cursed Arms, Mephisto, and Mashu Medusa. I feel that this lineup is already very luxurious. Now I am very entangled because I really want to continue to expand, but the length limit of 100 chapters is very uncomfortable. Chapter 442 Devil Servant. They are all here. On one side of Fuyuki City, Qin Ren's clone sat on top of a ruin with his hands in his pockets. Under his feet, countless demonized humans, Cats, dogs, insects, and all kinds of monsters were wandering around. Inferior product. The power he released was too strong. Although he did become a demon, his will was too weak to maintain his original personality. Now, the demons wandering here, at most, only have about 30% of their original personality. They have lost too much personality rationality, and now they are completely a group of walking dead, a group of zombies. With a wave of his right hand, in his field of vision, around those weak demons who had completely lost their rationality, sand soldiers appeared one by one, raised their spears in their hands, and pierced their bodies. Then, he snapped his fingers. A dark singularity appeared in the air, and whirlpools surged. A book with a twisted, evil feeling and wrapped in chains appeared. Since you're here, let's have another Holy Grail war. His fingers flicked, and the pages of the book turned. Then, the mana surged and transformed into magic power gathering. The words on the pages turned into distorted information and injected into the magic power, forming a false soul. Then, the quicksand surged and condensed into a carrier. The false soul was injected into the quicksand and formed a body. This was an elegant middle-aged man wearing a rose-red suit and a mustache on his chin. Looking at him, Qin Ren smiled. Tozaka Tokaiwa, please be the master again. Raising his hand, Qin Ren's fingers shook, and the surging magic power formed 3 strokes of the command seal on the back of the middle-aged man's hand. My name is Tokiomi. The mirror image of Tozaka Tokiomi corrected. It's the same. Qin Ren smiled, without any intention of explaining the stalk, and waved his fingers again. As for your servant, just pull 2. The pages of the twisted book turned again, and magic power gathered. A male servant with a naked upper body and wearing several black gold ornaments emerged. After appearing, the mirror image of Ramses II frowned and looked at Qin Ren. Apep, are you going to plunge the world into darkness? You don't have to worry about these things. Qin Ren turned his eyes to the mirror image of Tokiomi next to him. 3 chains flew out of Rar's body and connected to the command seal on the back of Tokiomi's hand that looked like a devil's face. Just go and fight. Understood. No matter how unwilling Tokiomi and Rar were in their hearts, as distorted mirror images created by Qin Ren, they had no room to resist. Rar waved his arm, and the dark magic power surged, condensing into the dark night sun boat. Tokiomi, holding the gem scepter, boarded the sun boat with him and flew towards the battlefield in the distance. Rar and Tokiomi, this combination should be quite good. Qin Ren muttered to himself, and the book of distortion surged again, and the personality information of other servants and humans also condensed, and combined with magic power to create a new distorted mirror image. A short knight in heavy armor, a female assassin in tights, a tall red-haired man, and a man in golden armor with angry and disdainful eyes. Damo, you continue to fight your father. Jingxi, you deal with the cursed arm. The other Husan, the Great, the King of Romania, Vlad III, should be of interest to you. Qin Ren stroked his chin and said in a tone of evil interest, you bastard, how many times do you want to play with me? Mordred gritted his teeth and glared at Qin Ren. Don't get me wrong, Mordred. Qin Ren looked at her. Do you think you are the real Mordred? No, you are just a mirror image created by my power, a shadow servant reflected in the mirror. I am not playing with you. This is easy to be misunderstood. As he said, his eyes swept over everyone present. I am confused. You are already dead. Your body and soul have long since disappeared. So, if your memories and personality are completely copied to create a new you, then, is this you, the real you? The memory and personality are exactly the same, is it, or is it not? While Mordred and others were thinking about this philosophical question, Qin Ren said again, and, as an incarnation descended from the throne of heroes, a servant only has a part of the power and ability. Is this part considered the real you? Who cares about that? The irritable little Mordred roared. But don't think about it. Even if I release the restrictions on you, you can't kill me. You can't even break my defense. Qin Ren yawned and dusted off his body. Increase your power tenfold. I think you can break my clone's defense. Don't think about those things. Just fight well and make progress every day. Qin Ren crossed his fingers, looked at her and said, according to the compatibility, your master is still better, Shiziji. If you want to play a trick on you, I will bring him out. Shiziji, what are you talking about? Mordred frowned. You are a servant of this lost belt, not a servant of pan-human history. You have no memory of other world lines, so of course you don't know. Qin Ren sighed, but he quite liked the combination of Shiziji and Jamo, and didn't want to make trouble. But to be honest, Qin Ren also felt that his actions were becoming more and more evil, and he had the idea of bringing Shiziji out and letting Jamo kill Shiziji personally. But in the end, he still threw this idea out of his mind. Forget it, you just continue to fight alone, and I will give you some props by the way. Under Qin Ren's will, the dark magic power gathered on the body of the mirror Mordred. It was visible to the naked eye that her armor was stained with black, and the evil aura became stronger and stronger. In a short period of time, she became no different from other demons. The heavy armor had turned into something like flesh and blood, just like the skin of a demon, and the long sword in her hand also changed from the original silver long sword mixed with red to completely black and red. Behind her, a tail that looked like the tail of a dragon and the tail of a demon stretched out. Demon Mordred, it doesn't feel right. Anyway, it's just a warm-up before the main meal. Forget it, let's do it. With the Qin Ren's command, the demonized Mordred turned into a black and red figure and flew out. You can turn people into demons at will. You are indeed a demon god. At this time, the great Emperor Iskander said. Hearing this, Qin Ren just shrugged his shoulders. Anyway, it's not a good thing. Qin Ren himself didn't know what his original body was, but it was obvious that it was an evil thing anyway. The little things that leaked from the original body were enough to create this little guy 32, and create a pseudo-demon. So, my next opponent is that Vlad 3. Right? He said, not impressed by Qin Ren's answer. Of course, but in the same way, before you go, I'll give you some tips. Do you want to turn me into a demon too? The mirror image of Iskander is completely the original character. After being created by Qin Ren, he knew that he could not resist, so he was very open-minded. Yes, Qin Ren nodded, and then he seemed to remember something and smiled at Iskander. Have you heard of the demon god Bao? According to legend, the demon god holds a giant hammer in his right hand, shoots thunderballs in his left hand, and wears a conical crown with 2 horns on his head. Chapter 443, Kuchilane's Exit. Boom. What an interesting archer. He actually uses 2 swords. The demonized Kuchilane pounced out again, and his scarlet giant claws attacked the servant Emilia. But no one said that archers can't fight in close combat. Seeing Kuchilane rushing over, Emilia threw out the black and white double swords in his hands, which were a replica of the famous sword Ganzhong Moi. Crane wings do not fall. The flying double blades rotated, drawing 2 intertwined black and white arcs in the air, and slashed towards Kuchilane. What a fancy thing! The monster like Kuchilane swung out his claws, shattering the black sword in it, and continued to charge towards Emilia without stopping. Hard skills Taishan. Without any hesitation, Emilia projected a pair of Ganzhong Moi in his hands again, and his legs burst out with magic power to strengthen himself. While his body quickly retreated to the back, the Ganzhong Moi in his hand was thrown out again. It's useless. Archer. Kuchilane tilted his head to avoid the flying white sword, and his sharp teeth crushed the flying black sword. That's not necessarily true. The 2 swords appeared in the hands of the heroic spirit Emilia again, but this time, he did not retreat again, but held the 2 swords, crossed them in front of him, and then slashed. Heart skill. Crossing the Yellow River, holding the double blades, Emilia's legs burst out with magic power, and his body flew forward. Berserker. Although it doesn't conform to the concept of a knight stool. I'm sorry. As the voice sounded, the ground was stirred up by dust waves, and Diarmid, holding a yellow rose, rushed from another direction, and the yellow rose in his hand stabbed towards his head. It's useless to come. Kuchilane's mouth was grinning from ear to ear, and the situation of blood constantly flowing from his heart and other parts seemed to have no effect on him. Letting out a monster-like roar, with claws extended, Kuchilane slashed at Emilia who was flying towards him. At the same time, his long and thick tail covered with thorns swung hard and hit Diarmid's yellow rose. With 3 explosions, Diarmid and Emilia were blown away together. However, when they were blown away, they did not feel any regret for failure, but smiled at the success of their plan, He projected a black sword in his right hand again, and then, twisted and deformed, a black bow appeared in his left hand. Buzz, whoosh, the black sword moi, which turned into an arrow, pierced through the air, leaving a few ripples, and shot towards Ku Qilane's head. At the same time, the white sword that flew out at the beginning and was not broken returned from Ku Qilane's back. Ganzhong moi, the famous yin-yang sword he imitated, is divided into a female and a male. The two swords have the ability to attract each other. As long as you hold one of them, you can find the other one no matter how far away it is. Moreover, the original of this pair of yin-yang swords is a treasure with powerful anti-demon ability. It can't work on evil monsters, but if it is a powerful monster, even if it is huge, it can be cut off with one blow. Although the anti-demon effect of the imitation is not as good as the original, it is still a few tenths or a few hundredths of the original. As long as it can penetrate the monster's body, it can fully curb its recovery ability. This trick still doesn't work on me. Letting out a roar like a wild beast, Ku Qilane bent his claws and grabbed the flying arrows. At the same time, accompanied by blood splashing, the two of them suddenly saw that Ku Qilane's back arched, and dense, sharp red thorns stretched out from his back, turning into thorn armor. However, Emilia laughed. A beast is still a beast. It will only react to the recent events. This is not what I am talking about. Ku Qilane seemed to have thought of something, and his monster-like head turned to the other side. The countless thorns on her back blocked the white sword at the cost of dozens of broken ones, and her long and thick tail smashed it. When her claws swung out 10 red lights and split the arrows that the black sword moi had transformed into, Saber Artoria, wearing a silver-blue skirt armor, had already completed her preparations. The storm that was wrapped around the invisible sword had been removed, and pieces of golden light points gathered in her hands, forming a stream of light. Caliber. The light points gathered on the golden lake sword turned into a flash of light, and the gushing stream of light rolled up countless whirlwinds, covering Ku Qilane's body. Diarmid, who fell to the ground almost at the same time and smashed a hole in the ground, showed a look of relief and regret. Regret, because he could not duel as a knight, and also regret that the opponent had transformed into a monster, and relief, too, he had already realized that he had no chance of winning against Ku Qilane, who could heal himself at an extremely fast speed and had terrifying speed and strength. It is true that the curse of the yellow rose can make the opponent unable to recover, but the opponent regards the pain as nothing, and his hand can't have any effect on him. In the opponent's continuous offensive, he will definitely fall first. If he is summoned as a sword rank and a saber, with the magic sword Moraltach and the magic sword Beagletach, he will still have a chance to defeat the opponent. Apart from other things, the magic sword Moraltach was given to his adoptive father Angus by the sea god Maneno Maclay in the past, and was given to him by his adoptive father. Only one swing is needed to kill all the enemies on the battlefield who are enemies of this swordholder. With that powerful attack, as long as he finds an opportunity to kill Ku Qilane with one blow, there is no need to worry about this terrifying recovery ability. Diarmid sat up and watched the scene of Ku Qilane's body constantly disappearing in the rushing light stream. He could see that even in the terrifying light stream, Ku Qilane was still trying to recover himself. The evil black lines that looked like runes were constantly releasing power, trying to repair the damage suffered by Ku Qilane. However, it was too late. Every part of Ku Qilane's body was exposed to the scorching impact, and the repair could not keep up with the speed of destruction. However, experiencing such pain, the other party did not have any intention of shouting. He just frowned, endured the situation of his body being constantly repaired and destroyed, and issued a final warning: if you want to do it, you can still do it. However, this low-level tactic is useful against me, but it won't work against that bastard Nuada. As the last syllable fell, Ku Qilane's body dissipated in the scorching light, and Artoria did not relax her vigilance. She recalled the situation when Mordred was resurrected again after being destroyed by her, and stared at the place where Ku Qilane dissipated with great vigilance. P.S. This volume of Fate will definitely be completed. Don't worry about it. I'm just talking about whether to expand it. By the way, I'm planning to write about Bone King in the next volume. Chapter 444 I am the devil. At this moment, the curtain fell on this side, but on the other side of the battlefield, several people were still fighting. Bellerophon, the reigns of the night. Medusa once again rode Pegasus into the sky, using the vast sky as an acceleration track, and with the magic power of herself and Pegasus as a propulsion, the seemingly brilliant and gorgeous noble phantasm was released, and the mythical beast Pegasus carrying Medusa once again turned into a white comet, colliding with Lancer Artoria, who was fighting with Vlad III, and Madland, who was fighting with the cursed arm. Facing such an attack, the first reaction of both Lancer Artoria and Lancelot was to dodge. Facing such an attack head-on was completely unbearable. With Vlad III involved, no matter how fast they burst out now, they could not distance themselves from the enemy and take themselves out of the enemy's attack range. At the moment when Medusa activated her noble phantasm, Vlad III, who was evenly matched with Lancer Artoria in a one-on-one fight, clenched his silver-white spear in his right hand, and his graceful voice, which was full of bloodthirsty madness, rang out, Kazaklibe, blood-stained king ghost. At the moment when a piercer, who looked like a rider and a lancer, but was actually a berserker, declared his liberation, the land near Lancer Artoria suddenly bulged up, thump 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 thump. In an instant, with Lancer Artoria as the center, countless scarlet slender spikes instantly grew in the surrounding area. In succession, the scarlet giant spikes protruded from the ground one after another, stabbing towards Lancer Artoria in the center. Swinging the spear, although Lancer Artoria did not flinch, she swung the spear almost as soon as the spikes came, smashing the scarlet spikes that were as tall as an adult from the side. The black and red holy spear rolled up the storm and spun, breaking all the spikes. Then, the magic burst out, and the whole person jumped off the horse's back. Because the war horse ran under her was unable to completely block the attack, the iron hoof wrapped in the storm, after crushing dozens of spikes, was pierced through the horse's legs and belly by the scarlet spikes that grew again. Zilialu! Exclamation mark with a shrill sound of the horse's neigh. The body of the war horse Ranvel was pierced by the scarlet spikes from all directions. Countless slender scarlet spikes pierced the body of the war horse Ranvel one by one. At the same time, rows of scarlet spikes burst out from the surroundings and soared into the sky, enveloping Altria, who had jumped off her horse, Berserker Landstot, and Husan of the cursed arm in the center. At the moment when the encirclement made of bloody spikes was formed, the cursed arm retreated backwards and passed through the gap left deliberately with its flexible body. When Lancelot, who was trying to dodge and attack at the same time, chopped down with the long sword in his hand, Wu Ui Hu Guang, the rows of scarlet spikes that rose into the sky blocked his attack at the cost of being chopped into 2 rows, less than 20 spikes. Only Lancer Altria and Lancelot, who had lost their horses, were left in the center surrounded by the scarlet iron stakes. At this time, it was too late to dodge again. The white comet had already crashed down. However, at this moment, a wave of magic power emerged. Command seal. Lancelot's body instantly disappeared from the spot, leaving only the executed warhorse Ranlai and the Lancer Artoria holding the knight's lance. Boom. It's too late. Even if the Lancer Artoria was really faster than Medusa and reacted to counterattack before Medusa hit her, she would not have enough time to gather the impact of the mythical beast Pegasus that could tear through the reins of the night. Even if she could resist, she could not resist the scarlet iron stakes that continued to emerge from all directions with the momentum that penetrated her body. However, even if she was about to be attacked with certain death, she did not choose to continue to defend, but released the Holy Lance. However, this time, the word Seal 13, Decision Start did not sound from the Holy Lance. What sounded was, the 13 restraints are released, and the transformation of the demon god begins. When Lancer Artoria heard this voice, she immediately realized that something was wrong. However, as a mirror image, it was no longer a heroic spirit clone, no longer a servant who descended on the earth as the clone of the king of the wild hunt, but a false image reproduced from the mirror, a puppet of the demon god, a creation of the demon god. The upright question originally issued by the souls of the 13 knights of the Round Table, at this moment, turned into a playful and evil declaration. weak, should be eliminated. Bedivir's voice, dual, ridiculous knightly honor. Palamid's voice, elves, despicable fantasy species. Lancelot's voice, self-desire, purity is hypocrisy. Galahad's voice, evil, you are evil. Mordred's voice. 12 voices sounded almost at the same time, and the familiar voice was uttered in an evil tone that she could not imagine at all. 12 upright knights of the Round Table? No. The voice that sounded from the Holy Lance now was 12 evil demons. Finally, a voice that she couldn't ignore rang out, I am the demon god. It was her voice, her own voice. As the 13th voice rang out, the black and red holy spear erupted with a frightening and terrifying evil force. Wrong-nominad. The terrifying power erupted instantly. The dark power spread outward at a high speed with her body as the center, forming a dark sphere. Then, blooming towards the sky, boom, a huge black light column rose from the ground. Medusa, riding the mythical beast Pegasus, directly crashed into the expanding black light column. Boom. Almost instantly, the front hooves of the holy Pegasus were torn apart by the black light. In an emergency, Medusa did not hesitate at all, kicked the doomed Pegasus with one foot, and fled urgently. The storm surrounding the black light column squeezed the steel like scarlet iron stake. Like trees in a hurricane, the scarlet iron stakes were directly torn apart. Countless scarlet iron stakes flew into the sky, disintegrated in the sky, and turned into magic power and dissipated. Another person who was very close, Vlad III, uttered a muffled groan. The storm of evil magic tore his skin on the surface of his body destructively, and even the bones wrapped in flesh and blood, which were also made of magic power. In the violent wind pressure, he seemed to be crushed into a meat pie. When the scarlet war horse he transformed into a vampire was crushed into pieces by the storm, Vlad III opened another treasure, Legend of Dracula. As the prototype of Count Dracula, this treasure transformed him into Count Dracula, the ancestor of vampires. In an instant, he changed from an elegant king who still had a human form to a hideous vampire. Then, he flew backwards. Chapter 445, Daughter of Reliat. Boom. On the bank of the Moon River, the dark Joan of Arc was surrounded by dark green light and shadows like the dark deep sea, and she was muttering to herself. A book made of human skin, which recorded the spell to summon the evil god, was gradually merging into her body. Her body was gradually changing. Arrogant god, cold god, we will tear you off the throne. God's beloved lambs, humans with bodies similar to God, will be torn apart. The last judgment will be followed by the wail of the Son of God. The gate of heaven will be knocked open by the girl who fell into the abyss. Gilles de Rais shouted to the sky, staring at this fake Joan of Arc with his bulging eyes. The next moment, Joan of Arc's lower body shattered and turned back into dark evil magic. The evil magic that exuded a filthy and damp feeling swelled up along with Joan of Arc's body. The dark magic power gathered into curled tentacles, like an octopus. Master, this is really amazing. A black mist surged and gathered around Gilles de Rais, condensing into the figure of Qin Ren. Looking at Jeanne d'Arc, whose body was constantly growing, her lower body turned into sea demon tentacles, and her aura became more and more evil. Qin Ren turned his head and looked at Gilles de Rais. This scene is spectacular. You are right. The eternal demon god. Gilles de Rais stared at Jeanne d'Arc, his eyes full of fanaticism. This is the witch in the abyss, the god we are waiting for, the witch who can knock on the door of heaven. As he said, he turned his head, and the bulging eyeballs fell with his eyelids. This fanatic servant showed a sincere smile. As you wish. Jeanne d'Arc has become a god, a master. Looking at Marshal C's fanatical eyes, Qin Ren couldn't help but laugh. It was indeed quite unexpected for Qin Ren. He had not thought that he was going to do it himself, but Marshal C took the initiative to do it. Joan of Arc, turned into a demon. That's right, this fake Joan of Arc has turned into a demon. To be honest, it's pretty. The monster girl is really great, but the color of the tentacles is a bit too colorful. It would be better if it was completely black. The upper half of the god is in a human posture, and the lower half is completely octopus tentacles. The tentacles of the sea demon are similar to the octopus girls in many monster girl works, it's just that it's wrapped a little tightly. Qin Ren touched his chin and watched the ever-increasing, black tentacles that kept swinging, smashing one area after another, and grabbing and devouring the demon created by the violent blood released by Qin Ren. Sea witch? No, sea demon is better. Is it probably half Cthulhu? Qin Ren looked at the system's description. Demon. Daughter of Reliat, the fusion of the teachings of Luoyan City and the fake Black Joan that he created. Is she half of Mr. Q's daughter? No. Mr. Q is her father? Then what is she? Shaking his head, Qin Ren looked at the daughter of Reliat who had lost her mind and fell into madness, waving her tentacles and wreaking havoc everywhere. He turned his eyes to Marshall C who was next to him with fanatical eyes. Marshall C has now completely become a fanatic believer of Jeanne d'Arc who has turned into a demon. However, it seems that there is something wrong with his operation. The daughter of Reliat in the form of Black Jeanne d'Arc screamed wildly, and her body turned to the position where Qin Ren, Marshall C and Renasuk were standing. The huge tentacles suddenly slapped towards the three of them. Puff. The evil tentacles, which were full of moisture and madness, passed through Qin Ren's body directly and shattered his body into black mist. It was no problem for the clone created just for conversation to be shattered. But Renasuk, who was standing next to Qin Ren and had not yet reacted, was directly smashed by the huge tentacles, turned into blood mist, and died directly. The scarlet blood mist was directly absorbed by the huge tentacle. Renasuk, seeing this scene, Caster Gilderay wanted to do something, but facing the tentacles of the daughter of Reliat, he did not resist. Unlike the attack that killed Renasuk, the tentacles of the daughter of Reliat did not smash him to pieces, but instead split open a mouth like crack from the tip. She wanted to devour Caster Gilderay. Facing the huge mouth so close at hand, Gilderay was extremely fanatical. Renasuk, my master, don't worry, Gilderay, will keep my promise to you. The best cool that you expect will be shown to the world. I will go with you immediately, he shouted, raised his head, looked at the daughter of Reliat who looked like Jeanne d'Arc, and shouted loudly, now we will once again raise the banner of the Savior. Gather the abandoned under the banner of our God. Use our rotten bodies as sacrifices. Our God, the girl in the abyss will judge the world. The moment his fanatical voice fell, the crack on the tentacle suddenly fell. Click, click, accompanied by a heart-pounding chewing sound. Gilderay, whose body and soul core were crushed and turned into the purest magic, was completely absorbed by the daughter of Reliat. It was at the moment when this action ended that the last bit of restraint of the daughter of Reliat and the last bit of will of the false Joan of Arc were completely wiped out. TSK, 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 what a fanatic. Qin Ren couldn't help but squeaked twice as he watched the daughter of Reliat, who was completely in a state of madness, constantly waving her tentacles, leaking the dark magic power into the Weiyuan River, polluting and eroding the river. Then, a huge tentacle slapped towards him. The body condensed by the black mist completely dissipated. At the same time, the aquatic creatures living in the Weiyuan River also turned into complete monsters as the dark magic power spread. On the other side, hundreds of meters underground in Fuyuki City, the scantily clad brown-skinned girl, mirror image Nito, was muttering to herself. No, she was not mumbling to herself, but chanting a spell. Mirror of corpses, mirror of darkness, her treasure, that dark treasure, the mirror of the underworld, a mirror that does not reflect real things. There is no optical function as a mirror. What was reflected in it were always strange and terrifying dark shapes. It was a mirror that reflected the underworld, or rather, a dark and otherworldly world whose details were unknown. Was the other world of the dark abyss expanding? Was it a prison of magic created by the ancient Egyptian gods? Was the things that were rolling in her heart formed by magic? None of this mattered anymore. Nito looked at the frost-like lines that were gradually spreading on her brown skin, and just raised her head. In her gradually disappearing rationality that was occupied by others, she continued to chant the spell that went against her will, turn into a door, and draw terror. Here the dark magic continued to spread outward. The incomplete corpses buried in the ground stood up again, combined together, greedily absorbed the magic power around them, and gathered on the corpses to form twisted flesh and blood. Caca-skeleton demons full of death and coldness emerged one by one. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, It means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 446 The Ultimate Crime. Starting from Fuyuki City, the whole world was infected by the evil breath at an increasingly faster speed. Humans, birds, beasts, insects, plants, and even life forms such as bacteria and fungi were gradually transformed into demons. The huge light column wrapped in the storm, Lancer Altria was transforming into a demon. Pseudo-Black Zen merged with the teaching book of Luoyan City and had completed the transformation into a demon. Nito was holding a grand ceremony using the underworld treasure mirror as a material, and was about to complete the transformation into a demon. And Qin Ren narrowed his eyes. As the wind and sand were raised, the strange and evil twisted book appeared with the sound of chains, and the tall black-skinned giant, Darius III, appeared in front of Qin Ren again. At the same time, a dark blue card appeared in Qin Ren's hand again, Obelisk's giant god soldier, the pillar of sand. This can also be completed. Looking at the giant pillar wrapped in the storm of the wild hunt, Moriarty beside Fujimaru Ritsuka immediately realized that something was wrong. Master, it must be destroyed immediately. Moriarty, the university mathematics professor who appeared in The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, is also the final boss in the collection, the leader of evil, and the old man known as the Napoleon of the criminal world. He is a special servant created by a heroic spirit absorbing a phantom spirit. Phantom spirits are extremely special servants. Generally speaking, servants cannot be established by fiction alone. They all have myths, legends or actual existence as their basis. As the crystallization of faith, if a servant is established by fiction alone, its spiritual base is much weaker than that of historical servants and mythological servants. Phantom spirits also have noble phantasms, but if they are summoned as phantom spirits, the power of the noble phantasms will mostly be weakened. Even if they are too weak, they cannot even form a spiritual base, and will disappear after a period of existence. If the original Moriarty, as a character from a novel, has a spiritual base that is not weak, although it is still lower than that of a normal servant, it is indeed at the level of a heroic spirit. Moriarty absorbed another phantom spirit, a character in the work Magic Bullet Shooter created by the playwright based on German folklore. He made a deal with the devil and gave his soul to the devil. The devil cast 7 magic bullets, and the victim of the 7th bullet belonged to the devil. This Moriarty is such a composite servant. The phantom of the Magic Bullet Shooter became his equipment and weapon. For this reason, he has a spiritual base equivalent to the normal archer level. He was summoned to this abnormal zone because of the Magic Bullet Shooter with the power of the devil. He could feel the evil feeling that was constantly strengthening in the huge light column surrounded by the storm. That thing is dangerous. The next moment, a white box that looked like a cello box and a human-shaped coffin appeared next to Moriarty. Magic Bullet Shooter. Without any hesitation, he lifted the box horizontally. With the click of the metal mechanism, the bottom and front of the box unfolded, and the muzzle of the gun extended from the bottom of the box. Da-da-da-da-da. The flames spewed out. Bullets were ejected from this box that looked elegant. It was a Gatling-like machine gun. At a speed of over 6,000 rounds per second, the magic bullets gushed out from the Magic Bullet Shooter. In a few seconds, hundreds of magic bullets poured out. However, it was useless. The hundreds of magic bullets aimed at a point were easily broken up by the storm surrounding the dark pillar. Little Fawn, the old man is right, that thing is not good. The dragon girl next to Fujimaru Ritsuka, Lady Camilla, a Hungarian noble who was the source of the vampire legend together with Vlad III, also known as Count Dracula, was summoned as Elizabeth Bathory at the age of 14. In the Book of Revelation, the great dragon is the ancient serpent, called the devil, and Satan, who deceives the whole world. It was thrown to the ground, and its messengers were thrown down with it. Dracula means the son of the dragon. In early legends, vampires are the sons of the devil. Elizabeth, when summoned at the age of 14, was pure, not yet at the age when Lady Camilla bathed in blood as the legend goes. However, The impressions from her past deeds distorted her past and her state of existence, and her abilities and posture changed, and she finally appeared in the form of a dragon. After she finished speaking, she stretched out her hand, and a black and red metal spear appeared in her hand. Surging magic power gathered in her body. "Old man, we have to release the treasure," Elizabeth said, her mouth opening and closing, staring closely at the dark light column. Hearing this, Moriarty smiled, and the two sides of the white box opened, revealing round holes 3 fingers wide. "Very good, let's have a math lesson. Count how many missiles are fired from the magic bullet shooter." When Medusa and Vlad 3 returned to Fujimaru Ritsuka's side, they both opened their treasures at almost the same time. "It's about to end. Die in a song I treasure." Elizabeth took a deep breath. Kylan Sarkani, Dragon's Roar. The majestic power of Sarkani, the Thunder Dragon, a weather spirit that has been passed down in Hungary since ancient times, was transformed into a treasure. It amplifies sound and vibration, and summons wind and rain through its resonance. But as Elizabeth's attack, it is the devil's song that can destroy and ravage the target's body and mind. At the same time, Moriarty also accumulated enough magic power and released the treasure. The dynamics of an asteroid. The ultimate crime, accompanied by the full of energy, the evil voice like the devil's shrieking laughter, the terrifying magic power bloomed. He is the leader of evil, but also a mathematics professor and philosopher, and the author of the academic research result Asteroid Mechanics. The ultimate crime. This is the ultimate destruction that Moriarty pursues, destroying the entire planet. However, as a servant, his spiritual base and the magic power he possesses are not enough for him to destroy the entire planet, enough to tear the city apart. The next moment, with the terrifying consumption of magic power, a shadow appeared in the sky, like a pair of hands, and like a spider. The terrifying black spike extended from the diffuse spider-web shadow and blasted towards the black light column entangled by the storm. At the same time, the magic bullet hunter in his hand was emitting flames, and rows of small missiles flew out from the box, aiming at the point of Elizabeth's sonic attack together with the lizing bullets. However, at this moment, a dark thunder fell from the sky. Chapter 447 Merlin's Plan. On the other side, a paradise where flowers bloom in all colors and forever. The daytime is filled with the sunshine of spring and the scent of summer. The night is covered by the air of autumn and the starry sky of winter. At this moment, there are flowers and insects on the earth, and there are flowing water, greenery and wild beasts in the forest. And by the water are fairies with beautiful faces. A small world known as the Country of Eternal Spring and the Island of Apples in mythology. An ideal place that cannot be realized or reached by wise beasts. Located outside of time that will not disappear until the end of human history. This is Avalon, the tower of the end of the world, in the inner sea of the planet. A beautiful man with a beautiful face, like a fairy, who has some similarities with humans, but seems to be very far away from humans. He is not a human. His mother is a princess of Wales, but his father is a supernatural nightmare born between the moon and the earth. He is not a heroic spirit, nor a servant, because he is still alive. His name is Merlin. Merlin, known as the magician of flowers, and he has clairvoyance. All magicians who have the qualifications of the Grand Master have excellent clairvoyance. Solomon has eyes that can see through the past and the future. Gilgamesh has eyes that can see through the future. He has eyes that can see everything in the present. He can see everything at any time point he is in. Clairvoyance that can see through the present. He is looking at a place. It is a huge, huge world that he has never seen before, independent of the time of this world, independent of the history of this world, and an alien that does not belong to this world. He once saw that an alien that made him alert, an existence that did not belong to this world, flew out of that huge world and entered the earth. Then, the disaster intensified. The disaster that was no less than the destruction of human nature. The invaders from alien planets dropped tree seeds, and several humans planted these tree seeds with their own hands, and the timeline that was supposed to self-destruct was fixed into a strange belt. He also saw with his own eyes that the master of Chaldea cut those strange belts one by one. However, now he is getting more and more worried. What he was worried about was not the lost belt itself, but the other world that even his eyes could not see. Clairvoyance is not invincible. Gods can counter clairvoyance. Gods are the will of the planet, the gods that originally existed on the planet, and the objects of faith are celestial bodies such as the sun and the moon, and natural phenomena such as storms and earthquakes. These gods are the conceptualization, embodiment, and personification of the planet. However, as the body of the gods, the will of the planet itself, such as Gaia, has no real personality and will. If Gaia has her own personality and will, then his clairvoyance cannot see all over the earth. However, what does it mean that the inside of that other world cannot be seen at all? The whole world is covered by the power to prevent prying. Who released these powers? Merlin was very worried. He had been watching the strange world that worried him, but later, he found that the object of his vigilance was wrong. The existence that flew out of that strange world turned the whole world into a lost belt in a very short time. Merlin, who had been watching everything, knew very well how this lost belt was formed. On this timeline, the demon gods buried by Solomon in various eras, the 72 pillars of demon gods, were all devoured by the existence that he could not observe. The other party was also a powerful existence with divine power. His clairvoyance was countered by the other party, and he could not observe the other party. Only the first time, he found that the other party tried to do something to Altria, so he intervened. However, it was because of this intervention that he could no longer see the other party's actions. He was completely unable to stop what happened afterwards. The power of the other party. It was another Solomon. Last time, at the final singularity of the destruction of human nature, Goetia, which was fused by the 72 pillars of demon gods, occupied Solomon where Solomon's corpse appeared. If this abnormal belt is transformed into official history, the entire earth will be demonized and occupied by demons, and humans will completely disappear in the future. However, Merlin felt that things were not that simple. What exactly is that weird world? However, with his power, he could not reach that level at all. This matter may involve the root cause, which requires countless planetary wills and countless restraining forces to fight together, and there is only one thing he can do: pull out this anchor related to that strange world, pull out this lost belt. But the problem is, with his own power, he can't fight against the black hand of this lost belt, the unknown existence that flew out of the strange world and was interfered with by him once, the existence that calls itself the eternal imprisoned demon god. He needs the power of the crown and the support of the restraining force, but the problem is that he is still alive, and the restraining force will support the servants and the heroic spirits. The power of the crown will only fall on the servants. Last time, in the Age of Gods, before the British era, Merlin was not born at the time of this singularity. In other words, he does not exist here, and non-existence is equivalent to death. Through magic, he used this to turn himself into a servant, thereby establishing a connection with Chaldea, and through Chaldea, he can turn himself into a servant in any era. But there is a problem. The connection he established with Chaldea was summoned by him with an ordinary spirit base and the job of caster. Although he has the qualifications for the crown, he cannot get support from the source. If he cannot get the crown spirit base, he will get the power equivalent to the gods. If he wants to fight against the lost belt, he must rely on the power from the source, or, with the power of Gaia. Merlin narrowed his eyes. He already has a plan. However, before he can carry out the plan, he needs to open the cover of the lost belt and maintain the passage for the heroic spirit to send servants to the lost belt. Otherwise, the master of Chaldea may not be able to hold on. P.S. The mainstream view now is that the crown is selected by the source. But there are also claims that the crown is selected by the restraining force. There is no detailed and clear setting at present, or I didn't find it, so I will set it according to the mainstream view of the Forum Brother Luncheon. Crown, selected by the source. God, is the incarnation of the restraining force, a tentacle similar to the clone, with a low and high lower limit. God servant, can only be downgraded to heroic spirit and then downgraded to servant, appearing in the world with an ordinary spirit base. Heroic spirit servant, downgraded to servant, appearing in the world with an ordinary spirit base. Grand servant, servant plus grand spiritual base, Grand servant greater than equals God. God greater than heroic spirit greater than servant. God servant greater than equals servant. Chapter 448 Avalon. A roar pierced the sky, and dark lightning shot from the distant sky. Boom. Along with the sound of thunder, the dark lightning formed a lightning net in front of the dark light column, blocking the attacks of Moriarty and Elizabeth's treasures. However, the dark spikes that emerged in the shadow of the spider web, the countless missiles released by the magic bullet hunter, and Elizabeth's deadly and dense sound waves that gathered powerful magic, under the combined attack of the two treasures, the dense dark lightning net was still broken. However, after tearing the lightning net, the power of the treasure was also consumed a lot. More than half of the missiles released by the magic bullet hunter exploded and disappeared after colliding with the lightning net, stirring up a cracking wind. The spikes that were enough to penetrate the city and tear the ground were also shattered by nearly a quarter by the dark thunder, and the dense and deadly sound waves released by Elizabeth were disturbed and spread because of the loud noise caused by the thunder explosion, and the attack surface became wider, but the power also decreased. Moreover, because the lightning net blocked the path, the attack path of the treasure was also deviated after being intercepted. The dark storm that rolled in front of the dark light column suddenly broke out at this time. The dark storm rolled like a sharp blade and collided with the weakened treasure. Just like it had just torn apart the mythical beast of the Age of God summoned by Medusa, the Pegasus, the dark storm instantly tore apart the treasure attack whose power had been weakened and lost its concentration. The sharp storm broke up all the remaining missiles, and the sound waves containing powerful magic were also destroyed by the evil magic wrapped in the storm. The last thing left was the dark spike. Although it penetrated the turbid black storm, it was penetrated and broken by the rising black storm before it touched the black light body. Everyone's eyes turned to the direction where the thunder appeared. Boom boom. The source of the thunder was obvious. It was the object flying from a distance surrounded by dark tears. It was a classic-looking black chariot. It was two evil beasts with well-developed muscles and terrifying appearances. No, to be precise, it should be one. It was a huge, strange thunder beast with two heads on its body. The two heads had curved sharp horns, and it looked like a bull or a ram. However, under the four pillar-like legs, there were not hooves, but limbs that were a crude mixture of claws and hooves, and looked extremely twisted. The steel whip-like tail, every time it swung, was like a sharp blade slashing, sweeping through the air with a sharp and strange sound. Every time the strange thunder beast's clawing hooves tore the sky, evil black thunder would explode from the sky, making a rumbling thunder that shook the sky. On the chariot pulled by such a monster was a tall giant. He held a huge hammer in his right hand, a black thunder ball in his left hand, and a conical crown with two horns on his head. I don't know if it's an illusion, but the servants and Fujimaru Ritsuko looked at this giant and thought of one person, Iskander, the conqueror who conquered several countries. However, it is obvious that this existence that exudes a palpitating pressure is not Iskander. Although he did not take action at all the servants present could feel the pressure brought by the other party. The servants had such thoughts. But, Master, looking at the demon god in the sky who looked similar to Iskander, Professor Moriarty raised his black-framed glasses. This is not good. No one is more familiar with this demon god than him. The place where he and Fujimaru Ritsuka established a connection was in the singularity of Shinjuku. He was summoned by Bao, that is, Bao, and appeared in the Shinjuku singularity in 1999. Bao, who wanted to take revenge on the master of Chaldea, and Moriarty, who wanted to surpass Holmes, were able to understand each other and form an alliance, the Phantom Demon Alliance, where the demon god and the servants joined forces. The existence in the sky that looked similar to Iskander made him feel the breath of the demon god. This breath was similar to the fusion of him and the bullet hunter. Could it be that the demon god Baal appeared again, merged with Iskander, or even took over Iskander's body? Or, it was not the demon god Baal, but the fallen god Baal in the Canaan mythology, who was the same as the demon god Baal. In fact, his guess was very close to reality. Demon god, thunder ruler, based on the mirror image Iskander created by the Qin people after absorbing the great emperor. At this moment, another mirror image was mixed into his body, the mirror image of the first demon god Baal, one of the 72 demon gods, who was called the demon god Pillar and Type Moon. Although it was only a semi-finished product, its power was greater than any servant present. Looking at the demon god who was indifferent and just guarding the dark light column, Moriarty told everyone his guess while being vigilant. The demon of thunder. The cursed wrist completely freed his bandaged arm, revealing the strange and twisted cursed wrist that was 3 times longer than an ordinary person's arm. "Mr. Magician, you must kill this demon first." Hearing this, Fujimaru Ritsuko wanted to say something, but at this moment, she had a strange feeling in her heart. And all the servants suddenly raised their heads and looked at the sky. Not at the demon wrapped in black thunder, but at the other side. To be precise, it was in the direction of the Throne of Heroes. Another place. Emiya Kiritsugu, Hisalmia, Iris Veil, Kenneth, Diarmid, Emiya, and Holmes, Mephisto. Their eyes were focused on one person, Saber Altria. To be precise, it was the gorgeous scabbard in her hand. An important island in the legend of King Arthur, a holy place in Celtic mythology, and the central belief of the ancient Druid religion. An existence opposite to the sword of promised victory. Avalon, the isolated utopia. Artoria, please continue to maintain Avalon. We need to continue to summon people from the Throne of Heroes. I understand. While answering, Artoria looked at the scabbard in her hand with some disbelief. The loss of the scabbard eventually led to the collapse of the kingdom. This is her shadow. During the time she was summoned, she had no idea that her scabbard was actually in Iris Veil's body. However, not long ago, when Kiritsugu came back with the man named Holmes, he took the scabbard out of Iris Veil's body and gave it to her. Although she was very angry about the fact that the existence of the scabbard was concealed, she should not be angry in the current situation. At this moment, Avalon was blooming with a ray of light, shooting into the sky. At the same time, in Avalon, in the tower at the end of the world, Merlin smiled. Chapter 449 Hatching the Demon. Use both sides to connect the Avalon scabbard to the elf town of Avalon in the outside world, so as to open up the passage and continue to summon the heroic spirits from the seat of heroes. Looking at the golden light column that reached the sky, Qin Ren's clone stroked his chin. Merlin really took action after all. No need to think. After knowing that the abnormality came from Avalon, Qin Ren immediately understood who was the culprit of all this. But who provided so much magic power? The magic power that permeated the air and gradually became stronger was his masterpiece. These magic powers were not for viewing, but a complete trap, something he deliberately created. In order to prevent Gaia from taking action, he tore all the spiritual veins destructively. It can almost be said that it felt like destroying all of Gaia's blood vessels. These magic powers were contaminated by his power. If others absorbed these evil magic powers, they would fall into his trap. It was precisely because of this that he could feel how much of these magic powers were missing. Apart from the magic power that Gudiko and the others absorbed when they summoned the servants at the beginning, there was no abnormal consumption. There is no abnormal consumption now. In other words, they use magic power from other places. Magician's magic power? You are kidding. Even if you drain the vitality of hundreds of magicians, you can't create the power to tear his shield. There is probably only one magic crystal that is this strong. Command seal. So that's it. Kotamin Raizai's command seal. Qin Ren immediately understood where this huge source of magic power came from. Moreover, they did not directly perform magic rituals and absorb the magic power in the air to operate, which means that they have already noticed the abnormality of magic power. Lao Fu, Professor, Kiritsugu, Weber, or was it Merlin's instruction? Qin Ren's mind flashed through the names of several people who are most likely to detect this trap. There is no point in saying this. Although it is a bit unexpected, this result is still within expectations. Originally, they wanted to hatch slowly. But now, they need to let them hatch in advance. Otherwise, if the eggs are broken, it will be miserable. At the same time, the mirror image of Ramses II, who summoned the dark solar boat and flew towards the location of Saber Artoria and others, suddenly stopped, and then a smile of indifference and understanding appeared on his face. So that's it, I'm just a sacrifice. The next moment, cracks appeared in his body surrounded by dark power. Dazzling golden flames emerged from the cracks on his body. The gold ornaments hanging on his body, which were infected by evil power, also melted quickly in this terrifying high-temperature flame. Accompanied by a crisp sound, a giant claw stretched out from the crack in Ramses II's abdomen. In his gradually fading consciousness, Ramses II only saw a giant dragon wrapped in flames flying out of his body, and then changing its posture in the air and becoming his appearance. A burst of black mist surged, and the Qin man's body solidified and appeared beside him, supreme. A cold voice sounded as if without any emotion. Looking at the man with the appearance of Ramses II, Qin Ren just nodded. Not bad. Real name, Purgatory, race, demon, bloodline, eclipse demon, attributes. All attributes see, 1 pillar of eclipse, 2 descent of eclipse, 3 power of eclipse, 4 ashes sphinx, 5 demon incarnation, 6 mirror composite temple, 8 flame lung funeral, 9 shadow solar boat. Glancing at Purgatory's panel, Qin Ren didn't say anything else, just said, go. Yes. Purgatory with the appearance of Ramses II bowed, and then, behind him, a brilliant sun appeared, followed by light and darkness overlapping, and in the change like a solar eclipse, the sun disk was eroded by darkness and became as smooth as a mirror. The next moment, a shadow like quicksand flowed out of the mirror, like dark golden sand, and the flowing shadow flowed out of the mirror, forming a huge solar boat under Purgatory. The moment the solar boat appeared, the surrounding light and heat were quickly swallowed up, as if to pull the whole world into darkness. The awakens solar boat carried Purgatory towards the direction of the huge light column. Watching the other party go away, Qin Ren's clone turned his side to the ground. On the ground, a black-skinned man who seemed to be a combination of the bodies of Mirror Darius and Mirror Qin was motionlessly being eroded by the frost blue power, just as the body of Mirror Rot II broke and hatched Purgatory in the form of a demon god. 2 huge wolf claws stretched out from his body. Real name, Frozen Earth, race, demon, bloodline, demon of death, attributes. All attributes see, 1, Frozen Earth pillar, 2, Frost Hell, 3, Power of Hades, 4, Gate of Rage, 5, Coffin of Wrongful Death, 6, Forbidden Army of the Netherworld. Then, a huge werewolf with black and blue fur and wearing a crown of Frozen Earth came out. With his huge claws extended, Frozen Earth picked up the empty shell and stuffed it into his mouth, chewing and swallowing it. Then, the hair on the surface of Frozen Earth fell off, and he changed from a werewolf to a human form. His appearance was similar to that of Qin. Go. Facing him, the Qin people also spoke as if they were instructing Purgatory. Yes, Supreme. A frost spear filled with a sense of death condensed in his right hand, and the figure of Frozen Earth turned into a black and blue shadow and disappeared on the spot. Wherever he passed, all the demons were frozen in the frost, died in the cold, and then revived again, turning into demons in the form of werewolves that swallowed and spit out frost. The pillar of sand is almost done. Watching the frozen soil fade away, the Qin people turned their eyes to the last material. Standing there was another mirror image of Darius and Iskander. However, at this moment, they were surrounded by dark and evil magic and endless quicksand. Using the giant god soldier of Obelisk as a blueprint, Iskander and Darius III as blueprints, the Qin people are making the yellow sand god representing the pillar of sand. But it is different from the previous creation of the yellow sand god. This time, it is directly creating a demon, the demon of sand, using the mirror image servants that contain his power as the incubation material to inject magic, shape personality, and forge souls. The demon of sand. However, it will take some time. This one will take some time to incubate. However, although it will take some time for this side and the demon god of the sky pillar, the rain pillar and storm pillar are almost finished. Qin Ren's eyes swept to the distance. In Weiuanquan, the surface of the daughter of Relia surged with blue light like water waves. In the city center, cracks also appeared on the dark light column. Chapter 450 Siege Strategy. Falling from the sky to the earth, or rising from the earth to the sky, the dark lightning connected the sky and the earth together. The thunder god, Baal, one of the 7 Tai-2 demon gods, or the fallen thunder god Baal in the Canaan mythology. It doesn't matter which one it is, no matter which one the other party is from the same legend. It can't change the fact that the other party is now the demon god who controls thunder. The brilliant lightning, amid the roar of the two-headed thunder beast, ravaged the earth. The thundercloud formed by magic power, the storm stirred by magic power. Amid the roar of the demon god who looked very similar to Iskander, the dark and evil thunder destroyed everything within a few kilometers. The people of Chaldea had no doubt that this terrifying thunder had the destructive power to easily destroy an entire city. The girl next to Fujimaru Ritsuka, Mashkariolite, immediately raised the large shield in her hand that looked like a mechanical structure. Real name, Freeze and Expand. That is a fantasy city that has endured many roads and many wishes. Respond, boom, accompanied by dust flying. Mash slammed the huge shield in her hand, which was taller than a person, to the ground. Mold Camelot, the already fragile fantasy city. Simulate Camelot, the city of white walls. Camelot, the kingdom of King Arthur's legend, an indestructible castle, the symbol of the Arthurian dynasty in the Golden Age, the center of political power. This glorious castle is the heart of heroes from all over the world, and they all want to join it and become a member of the Knights of the Round Table. King Arthur's father, King Uther, carried out a wizard massacre in Camelot. This city is a holy city that cannot be invaded by evil. Now that the heroic spirit Galahad who possessed her has left, Mashu uses her own power and practice to create a simulated noble phantasm based on Galahad's noble phantasm through Chaldea's magic and technology. With the influence of the mechanical sense, the magic power gathered on the large shield in Mashu's hand, and the illusory, simulated holy city of Camelot suddenly emerged. Tall and solid walls and gates appeared beside Mashu, protecting Fujimaru Ritsuka and other servants behind her. The dark thunder fell and bombarded the illusory gates and walls of Camelot. Under the terrifying pressure, Mashu's body was pushed back. Although this simulated noble phantasm was created through Chaldea's magic and the power of Da Vinci and Mr. Holmes, it is still a simulated noble phantasm, not the real noble phantasm from Galahad. Although it resisted the direct impact, Mashu could not compete with the opponent's powerful attack. The Phantom of Camelot also became unstable. At this time, Fujimaru Ritsuka took a step forward, one hand on Mashu's shoulder, and the other hand holding Mashu's hand. At the same time, the crimson command seal on the back of her hand lit up. Instantly, Mashu felt the magic power in her body suddenly increase. Her legs straightened, supporting the giant shield and maintaining the treasure. The illusory city-state, the white-walled city of Camelot, became stable. At this time, all the servants heard Fujimaru Ritsuka's voice. Elizabeth, release the prison city, lock him in the inherent barrier. At least 10 seconds. Grand Duke, you also enter Elizabeth's barrier. Delay for time. Professor, prepare to release the treasure again. Cursed arm, prepare to release the treasure. Medusa, prepare to release the magic eye. In an emergency, Fujimaru Ritsuka, as the master, immediately made a decision. Get rid of this guy first. Okay, little fawn, it's up to you. Without saying much, Elizabeth raised the spear in her hand. Bathuriers Smith, Blood Witch. As Elizabeth's voice fell, the spear in her hand was released and unfolded. Prison City Xeged, the magic city where Elizabeth tortured hundreds of girls and eventually killed them. The Scarlet Castle, as if bathed in blood, expanded in an instant, forming a different space, wrapping the thunder demon who seemed to be Baal in it. Vlad III, who was covered in the prison city with countless blood flying all over his body, disintegrated and reorganized into bats, and then turned into a combination of blood and body again, was also covered by the prison city. The three people disappeared in an instant. The dark thunder in the sky also stopped fluctuating and slowly dissipated as the user disappeared. As for the other servants, the magic power in the body of Husan the cursed arm surged and gathered on the strange arm that was almost the same height as him. Medusa also began to gather magic power. The purple hair that was longer than her knees suddenly shook, as if it had life. Her right hand also stretched over the bright red eye mask seal, ready to take it off at any time. Professor Moriarty, who had lost a lot of magic power after using the noble phantasm once, took a deep breath and gathered the little magic power left in his body. At this moment, a surge of magic power suddenly flowed into his body. Turning his head, the old gentleman looked at his master, the serious-looking orange-haired girl, and there was only one stroke of the command seal on the back of the other's hand. With a smile on his lips, Professor Moriarty also gathered his magic power and prepared to release the noble phantasm again. Nearly 10 seconds later, accompanied by a deafening roar, a crack appeared in the sky, the Scarlet Castle phantom dissipated, and Elizabeth, whose body was covered with burnt marks, and the vampire Vlad III, who was rapidly regenerating, emerged from the inherent barrier. After appearing, the two immediately left to the side. The next second, the Dark Thunder Demon with several claw-like wounds on his body appeared in the air again, appeared in front of the dark spiked pillar surrounded by the storm. That's right, Fujimaru Ritsuka's plan was to kill this demon in one fell swoop, and if there was a chance, he could also destroy the black pillar that felt like a demon pillar. At the moment when the Dark Thunder Demon appeared, Moriarty, the Cursed Arm, and Medusa released their noble phantasms at the same time. Cybele, Mystic Eyes of Petrification, the Dynamics of an Asteroid, The Ultimate Crime, Zabaniya, Delusionary Hard Sound, the Mystic Eyes that can turn everything to stone, which were possessed by the Gorgon cursed by Athena, the ultimate destruction pursued by the head of evil, the Cursed Arm formed by joining the arm of the demon god Shaitan born from the ancient Middle Eastern spell to his own body. The three treasures that had been accumulating power for a long time burst out at the same time, smashing towards the Thunder Demon who had no time to react. The light that radiated from the eyes, which could turn everything to stone, instantly petrified the body of the Dark Demon God, and the front of the dark, storm-wrapped light column also quickly turned into stone. However, just as the giant spike appeared in the spider-web-like shadow in the sky and the infinitely extended hand of the demon god that seemed to have stretched out from hell attacked, the dark light column suddenly cracked, a heart-pounding black storm burst out from it. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.